Second floor, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to see it myself. They got enough faith on me.
Yeah, I gotta figure out what happened. So,
74214.
thank you.
Well, I guess we'll say hi and bye.
Yeah. Looks like it's pretty good off here today.
Beautiful.
See you later.
All right, you gotta go.
Cold water good for you, Mr. Mack. Cold glass of water good for you.
You don't need a big glass of water. Since I don't drink about it once or twice a week, I need a big glass.
Pull it down.
How
It was good. Busy. Looking for everybody else. You know, I know. Hell, it's not for me too.
You need a big glass, right?
Huh?
You not enough water for you? You want to take one of them, please?
Oh, yeah, that's just like big uniform. That's a capsule. I mean, just enough to put space on my mouth. Good enough to wear my tongue.
All right, how are you, sir?
I'm just super usual.
You doing good?
Oh, absolutely.
Perfect.
Yourself?
I'm good.
All right.
Let me make sure that we have.
Oh, I can tell we had some fun today. I'm gonna yeah, 15 minutes. You having fun, man?
last year, the last time I came.
Well, it's supposed to be here part of the day. I don't know what to do.
Oh, okay.
How are you?
So we do get from the test agent.
I remember that, but I bet you'd be very resourceful and
I didn't need it.
yeah.
Okay, well, also, I'm gonna try to do this for the weekend tomorrow, so I'm really wrong.
I think that should be correct.
Oh, it's like formal advice that you're giving me.
Figure out what keep doing that. I need to be or something tomorrow.
Okay, I'll try.
Okay.
Okay, but this is the thing, I wanted to talk to you about this. Do you have a second? Do you have a second? Okay, well, this is the thing I wanted to talk to you about actually. So, since I've been able to wake up early, I agree with you. There's this gym that I might join, but the only way that makes it so, like, no, I agree with you, this is great, but there are some days where I'll want to take a 6 to 7 a.m. class, and then I won't be here. Shower.
The man of the hour. I was
Yeah, hey,
looking
what's
for
up?
you.
I'm all set up in there.
It's over here.
This one?
Yes.
I was all set up. Go into your room. So, okay, so I need to load it into that.
Yes. Do you know how to project the series? I think that you can do it to the
Whatever.
I don't know if you can just plug it in and it would show everything. That's the only thing. Okay. All right.
We'll just circle back on this, but we'll circle back, but just so you know, it's like, there's some preparation. Yes. She was at her desk. Yeah, when I walked out. All I'm saying is this, I know I have to get here by 8 or 8:30, but it would be like 7:45, or I can do it.
That's the drive. Do you have any other people like that information? Yeah. Can you go get, I can.
Yeah, I'll go there. I got this. I'm taking the stairs up. She got about the elevator.
How are you? Absolutely. Yeah. got it.
No, I just
And the restrooms on straight right?
I'm hiding my shirt now. The reason I am because I see outside. I found mine.
I have it.
I'll make it.
It's, I think it's labeled conference.
Okay, I'll make a copy.
Without notice. It's on the first one you open up, the PowerPoint says conference plan without notice.
I just wanted to make sure you.
We need to make copies because they don't have what we're talking about. They have everything except for this. So they have on their desk, at their desk, everything except for this.
Maybe like
I think it's
3 or 4 to each.
Oh, I can't. Oh, yeah, I can't.
So the problem is like, let me back to you. Is that there's stuff in the.
Oh, that's
So is that it? But you.
This is
yeah.
it, but let me cut it down so it's not as thick. I can cut some stuff.
Okay,
We'll do that real quick.
okay.
and then it's projected up there.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you doing?
Doing good.
How are things going?
Fast and furious.
I know.
It's downloaded on the,
It's-
desktop.
That time of year, well, I guess every day is that time of year.
It
Principal's
seems like it,
job.
right?
I'm telling you, it's never a let up or a let down. It's always continuous. Come on, please.
Regular password. Yeah, through that.
What's that? Oh, like, yeah, well, it was kind of. But John was making it like,
Yeah.
When you get a chance, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask a question to everyone, but I'd like to know, do you know what the Dallas Public Library offers for students as far as homework, outline, and test preparation?
No, not specifically. I know that there are a lot of they're partners with us. Like you can go through the school library system to access the Dallas Public Library system. But as far as prep, that I'm not sure. Like actual one-on-one tutoring or anything like
They
that.
have an S.
I went ahead and made the because I
You might just peruse it, so you can offer it to your students.
Okay.
When I was at El Centro, I offered it to the students there. And It's excellent. It is absolutely excellent.
I did, that's why I
And
had to.
they do have live people there from the universities to respond to some of the problems. And I know that they will critique writings.
Okay.
Once you go on, take a look at it. I just met with partners upstairs before coming here and talked to Joe, who is the director of the public library system. I'm on the board for the library.
Okay.
And I'm on the Friends board as well. And so what I had noticed some years ago that students and teachers did not know that
Just
website.
upgraded.
The databases that they have there are incredible.
Okay. I will get
It
on
would
that.
help your students and the teachers as well.
How y'all doing?
Fine, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right for Monday. Actually, we have a seat for you up here. You know,
Social
that's the
studies.
best thing about this.
About this fancy
Yeah,
room?
this is will be your
Are you not
spray.
gonna wear it?
Exactly.
Able to
Yeah.
this maybe?
You know, I like the round table concept from like last time we did it.
Hi, how are you?
So,
Good.
I'm gonna try to see if we can schedule it back
Yeah.
in the old room.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Your name?
Lindsay Kosha.
This is
I'm Will Rabbit.
I was like, I remember your name.
Yeah.
I think Lucy is such a beautiful name. Yeah, it's
But I
good to
always
see you again.
Yes, obviously,
How are
these
you,
people
Mr.
have to
Clark?
behind them.
Hey, Lynn.
sir?
I'm doing well.
Doing all right, buddy?
Yes,
sir, how you doing?
Spring break?
See you.
Short.
I'm good.
Yes.
Find your spot.
It did, and then I feel cheated because, you know, time changed and we lost an hour. But no, it was, I went out of town, so I wasn't here for the rain and all that.
Oh, nice. Hopefully you went someplace warm and
Yes, we went to the Gulf Coast, so I have the pictures here,
Where?
on the coast of Mississippi.
Okay.
So we went to the beach.
Okay, great. I'm
Yes.
from Alabama, so I grew up going to the Gulf.
Oh, okay. Goshen, Mississippi.
Okay, yeah. Very nice.
Yes.
The warm Gulf waters spoiled me though, because I thought all oceans were that warm growing
Ooh.
up. And then I went to like the West Coast.
The
And
Pacific Ocean, it's
Yeah.
cool.
right. Exactly.
I'm well.
It's good to see you again,
Good to
man.
see you. How have you been?
Absolutely.
I'm getting older and I'd like to say that I'm getting wiser, but I don't think that's happening.
How are you?
I'm well. Good to see you.
See you. In several months.
Hi,
Hi.
Come right in.
how are you?
I'm good.
Boy, I missed you. I miss you.
How have you been?
You can, or you can wait.
Good. You're first.
I'll prompt you. I mean, you know. So we'll be fine. Then make sure everybody's kind of getting the spot right. Yeah.
They didn't change it.
I'm gonna ask the principals to see what they think.
Yeah, good.
If they don't have it, then I guess,
Mr. DeVoe, how are you?
Yes.
I think there's a spot there somewhere.
Yes, right here.
And you guys can spread out a little bit if you don't want to be so squished together. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just.
You can stretch out this way, maybe we can do multiple rows, I don't know.
You know, it makes it harder for anybody. And of course, our artists. We'll see.
Hey, Mike. What's up? What's going on, man?
How are you?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
I'm good, thank you.
Jim, how are you?
Mike, I'm well.
hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
Like an hour and 10-minute drive from my work to get over here, all in bumper-to-bumper traffic.
Oh,
Where is
my
that
God.
This is
Where you
sort of
coming
an oasis on Flower Mound.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's miserable.
It is. Oh, it's just,
What's that? This is 5 o'clock traffic.
Yes.
I have to work it out.
Sorry.
Today has been a busy day traveling for me too. I had a budget meeting at high school.
You had a long day today?
And there was an accident on 30 and construction.
Which school are you with?
Solo Elementary.
Okay.
It's off at 30 and Cockrell Hill.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Then this weather, you don't know how to dress for it. I think it's supposed to be back down in the 30s on Saturday and then back up to 70s on Sunday. I'm like, man.
I have been sick more this season than I.
Yes, I have to.
Oh, is that right? I was thinking you were going to say it's a big distraction on campus because everybody wants to be outside.
Oh, no, I'm just saying that it's hurting my attendance because it's making everyone sick. The up and down, up and down. I was like, the groundhog saw his shadow and he meant business. Especially with all the snow, 3 snow days.
Stuff to pick up.
Crazy.
Just throw this on top of it. It's all the same. Looks like our parents went from TDI.
Hey, how you doing?
So Mike, what are you doing now?
Good to see you.
Yes, ma'am.
filing federal lawsuit against the district.
Oh,
How's it going?
spare time.
In my spare time.
Well, I meant, is that for a career?
Seems like it's taken 3 years.
But then I got the email and I wasn't, but my AP and my both of my coaches are. And so they are very, you know, they just told me, hey, I'm leaving, you know, follow the rules. And they had heard that there are some people who are doing housing.
I got 7 more to go.
And
We brought this.
So this is a Title I.
Title VI complaint. Title VI complaint. It has to do with the misallocation of state and federal funds both. So that'll be filed tomorrow or the next day. And then I'll file a criminal charge in back of that next week. Fraud.
You never cruise out?
People are going to hit. No, I'm not telling you. This is not. And there's no mistaking it this time around.
I was
This is data that has been spent or reported to the state over the last 5 years. This is a budget deal. This is a breach we have to say. This is a systematic removal of dollars from the classroom.
So what's the violation?
It'll be filed as
I'm not sure how, I'm not sure how the person, but it's already
What
occurred.
violation?
And the money
Understand.
Oh, it's also planned.
and
The $4 bills are.
my AP was, you know, really upset.
What
And
the district has
she,
are in error.
well, she doesn't have enough information. Like, it's just,
They have taken consistently the previous year's school documents.
like, we have no clue. All we know is that it's a roommate of one of our teachers on our campus.
And then that's the documents that get.
So it's like one of, like,
Regular
she
education
walked,
dollars
she
are-
walked into the
It's
teacher's
very
room
consistent.
and she overheard.
You have
Yeah,
our-
my friend knew that they were coming.
Title I funds,
And so we've heard
special education
say
fund.
that too.
Well, the Title I says it has to be
You know, found out.
roughly equivalent across the schools.
No, that's a budget. It doesn't have anything to do with this.
So that's what I'm trying to understand, what's it,
Okay, so you're thinking budget, and I'm telling you about spent dollar bills. So you have this floor of spent dollar bills, regular education dollars, per student, per school.
right?
And that floor should be fairly consistent. It can vary. There's no law that says it can't vary a lot. But top of that
This
floor,
might be
you have
like,
all of
maybe
the
if there's a
supplemental.
way for you, like, I don't know how y'all release the names to them, like, you just, like maybe know, okay, I'm going to this school, like, I'm going to something, but she doesn't know which
Some
teacher,
schools have
maybe until
education
the,
floor of
yeah, so maybe that's too much time
per student.
for some of the principals, I don't know, and I can't believe some of the principals are actually doing it.
And when you compare all the schools, all the dollar bills are roughly the same. So everybody is equal.
If they actually know the individual,
When you start
they
looking
just
at
help us, we can find a replacement.
so
So if
kids
it's
like
us
Lincoln,
anyway,
Lincoln has 20% spent,
can't come, we have to.
and yet they have the lowest floor of special education dollars.
Same for one of the content specialists.
So
If they know the
they have
teacher
20%
needs to
spent
spread more from another.
Right.
And yet,
You guys here.
More paper?
I apologize for the paper.
should be
The teacher, you know, cannot make the teacher photo, it just has a lot of like. So,
they're
Okay.
name being
split.
before,
So,
the thing is like.
and if it's fine, I agree.
We can find a place where it's too much time where.
Which the feds are the ones that write and complain.
Department of Education,
Civil rights division, August.
or Department of Justice.
No, so it's
Because
Department
I
of
mean, that
Education,
is
Civil
so
rights.
unfair.
And then they call the Office of Management and Budget for the audit. And they call the FBI. And that would be done through trustee Jones. Serious business. And it's not lies, it's not, I don't really do it. It's superintendent of audit. It is assisted, assisted misallocation of funds in Title I. We spotted it for 6 years.
Those particular issues, presumably it was addressed, although I've always wondered
I
how
like
the West
the
Dallas
emphasis
issue.
that there is.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
We can only work with everybody's
Fascinating, really.
I know I'm listening and probably should.
Oh, no, it's fine. I mean, it won't
See,
be
I was at
public.
Lincoln High School and I was a big student.
Hey,
Hey, how are you?
pretty good.
Good.
I missed my old seat.
I was one.
How you doing? Good seeing you.
Good to see you. I
And
was glad I asked.
so I'm wondering, you're saying that.
I'm used to sitting
I had to put a few more
there.
people on there, like, okay, we should.
I know.
So I missed the last meeting, I thought, okay, I'll be
So using Title I funds.
at the back
Not,
room.
what we're saying is that the district is supplanting rather than supplementing.
Right,
So,
you can't support,
You can't supplant.
not with Title.
Not
with any of
Not with any of them, right. But that's.
So how's the time
but
off
that's-
from the
but
board
that's
then?
what we're saying, so.
You've been busy.
We've had now.
Yeah, although I really
Education,
have to figure something.
professional.
My kids are both in college now.
Oh, where do they go?
So one's graduating this year, he's at
This district.
Lindsay, I'm
Rose
gonna place
Coleman,
you over here since you
technology
can control.
engineering school
They're all
in
the same
Indiana.
thing we are. But we thought
He started being a
we
mechanical
were starting
engineer,
when we started,
ended up being a mechanical.
because you
And
have
my younger one is a freshman up
some
at Carleton,
schools
which is a small liberal arts suburb in Minnesota.
athletic
Yeah.
stipends as
So I
high
think he's
as
having a good time. He has no
$4,000
idea
per
what he wants to
student.
do.
That haven't
And I have no idea what I want to do.
I'm the same way.
It's reported to the state.
So,
I mean, this isn't,
And then
I
you
mean,
can
this
switch
isn't
with.
budget stuff. This is actual reported dollar bills, spent dollar bills. Well, how do you do that?
Liberal arts schools are the best. I went to a small private liberal arts school.
Which one?
Texas Lutheran.
Which
University. I loved it.
Why are
It's just an
Chris
opportunity
Foreman and
to
Juanita Wallace and myself that
learn
Colin
and grow
and
and
a
just
few
experience
others,
new things.
almost 4 years
Right.
ago,
I mean, you can get it anywhere
tried
in
to get
college,
the
but
feds involved.
it made it
well, it's
special.
It's different, you know. At a big school,
And
there are only so many slots to do
because,
president of this or
in a
be
private
part of
conversation,
the
they
fund,
said,
you know.
well, since you're governor,
care.
So, quick update.
Small
as the
schools,
feds, we're not going to step on the
Lots of-
state's toes. If the state would take.
Josh
notice of
will be
that,
running late today.
Then
We had an
we were
event
so
that
good.
occurred earlier today, so he's
Now we have
on
to-
his way, hopefully. So he'll be running a little late. And I know I heard from 2 individuals that weren't going to be here, so there's quite more missing than the 2 I've heard from. So I was trying to kill a little bit of time and give them a little more time to get here, but in the next 5 minutes we'll go ahead and get started regardless, if that's okay with the committee. And Mike Kroposky will be the first individual presenting, so we're getting the presentation loaded into the system here, and we'll be ready in about 5 minutes, if that's okay with you.
That's great.
Okay.
Sounds great.
All right.
Happy to start.
You get kids?
Not yet.
Not yet?
I work
Oh,
with
and Jim
enough.
Terry's here today, so for
Perfect.
those of you that have any questions, go ahead.
No, not yet. Eventually.
Okay, we'll count this time.
We always said we wanted to wait until we were there, but I think we need to go for it.
Dr. Cherry, what's going on, man?
Hey there. That on your face?
How have you been?
Well,
You're looking more professorial.
It's because
I
of
figured
the-
he's gonna break
it's
out a
the
comb
this.
soon.
It's the chin whiskers that do it every time.
See what you're making there?
Here's the jacket too, though. It just looks.
Dapper.
Been there a lot. Just sitting there just teach.
New glasses.
A woman would notice.
Are you
that,
trying
right?
to be in disguise?
That's true.
Know who you are.
I saw something on TV today, right? Turning it down.
Where do you work?
I'm the CEO at Jubilee Park Community Center.
Oh, okay.
You doing good?
Time, so I went.
I saw you saw me email, right?
Yeah, I did.
There's never
I hear you.
Oh, there's never a check.
So,
I'll look at it.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the real question is.
Good thing is we're still relatively
You know,
young, I
this
guess.
looks like it's a budget
So-
based on projections of who gets paid what? I mean, is part of this performance-based budgeting, or?
No, what we do is, the superintendent puts out the district action plan. And
Right.
So our budget, we build the budget based on his district action plan.
Right, I understand
And,
that.
So,
So when did y'all start doing that? Just this year, or was that last year?
no, we've been moving, since Mike got here, we've been moving from essentially base budgeting to this, towards the performance-based budgeting. Because, he's got what's called indicators of success. And so what we're doing is he's got, based on the board goals, he develops his key actions. Yeah. Key actions, there's, I think it's about 10 key actions. Key actions. And then he's got key initiatives. So it's like key initiatives feed into the key actions. And then what we will do is we will develop what we call departmental key actions.
Right.
And those feed into his initiatives, into his district action. And that, then each one of those have what's called the indicator of success. And so he's always had the district action plans and the key indicators of success, the initiatives and the indicators of success. And this is the first year at the downtown departmental level where they've got to develop their departmental actions with indicators of success. Now, all of this is, and in the previous year, all of this was tied to additional dollars, new dollars.
Right.
But this year, we're having them do what we call, not restructuring, but essentially kind of reallocating dollars towards those initiatives. And, this year is just kind of with the department going to next year, we'll capture all of their past dollars.
So you're still in the same chart of accounts though, right? I mean,
Oh, yeah, same charts,
Same chart, so that's not.
program intent code, the same.
So how does this affect the cost of teachers from a budgetary perspective in the classrooms? Because are you saying that the budget is going to be based on the performance of those
Yes.
teachers and the dollar bills that they're going to?
That's a whole new, that's a whole different kind of portion of the budget. That's TB, what he calls TEI.
Right.
Teacher Excellence Indicators. And that is essentially, is thrown out. Next year, we will throw out longevity. It doesn't matter how many years you got. It's going to be based on, teacher effectiveness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the effectiveness rating, I think that there's kind of 8 categories that a teacher can belong to. As a matter of fact, she's right there, she can tell you more than I can, but the majority of teachers are going to be their effectiveness, teacher effectiveness indicators.
I need the sort
Based on the ratings by the principals and some other key issues. And then
I see the printing they do, the amount of printing they do here, and I always think back to
performance.
when I saw all the little organizations where it killed staff.
So you're saying, because I was looking up how this works legally,
It's like, okay, you could email it. It's right
what's
here.
recognized by the courts is seniority in education on the one hand, or merit and
It's I
performance on the other
appreciate it.
hand. Right. But TEI is going to end up being, it's going to be paid by distribution. You know that. You can't, so that's against the law.
Well, that wouldn't be bad.
You do
You know, just
merit.
kidding.
But that's not a merit.
It's merit. It depends on their effectiveness, their rating,
So
based on 2 years.
Are you using any federal funds, not, well, grants? No, there was one
Not for TEI, that's.
to pay for courses. There was a grant for that.
Okay, but look, if you're an industry and you bring in additional revenue, then you can receive, you know, a merit increase or some sort of increase based on that. But we're not a revenue generating industry, so how do you legally get it to work? Because the attorneys that I was talking to this morning are telling me, you can't do this and you're gonna get sued.
Well, we've actually, right, they don't have to sue us, because we think that they're defendant. And it's totally based on, it's not a bonus, it's not a merit pay, it's totally based on performance.
But you're basing that performance on the TEI as the mechanism, right? Lawsuit.
What's wrong with that? Basing it on the TEI, Mike?
Well, the TEI is nothing but statistical noise. We have 4 statisticians that have already and said that it is nobody but.
So Lindsay's gonna argue. Lindsay's gonna argue.
I mean, you know, it'll get settled in the courts eventually, but, you know.
Thank you. Thank you.
Interesting.
Well, so even, let's just be devil's advocate, even if that's true, so what?
Well, here's the thing. If the TEI is truly an indicator of the teacher's performance, then why does the superintendent want to protect TEI scores for those teachers that move from North Dallas schools to South Dallas schools? Stated publicly, I was at this commission meeting last time, you weren't here, that's what he would do. If TEI is truly teacher excellence indicator of performance, then you don't need to protect the scores. If you do, it's bogus.
I don't know what you mean by defensive first.
Miles said that he will not penalize a teacher's TEI scores if they move from a North Dallas school where they are highly effective to a South Dallas school.
And then I can drive. Then you can start.
Where their TEI scores may not reflect their excellence.
Well, I think that was probably, I'm speculating, but just to address the fear that that would happen. Whether
Then we should have Lindsay go first.
It may address the fear, but that's what he done before, and that's what he told this commission. That's
doesn't understand.
Then the performance-based budgeting isn't a valid criteria to make the budget work. See, it's a cascading effect. You can't- It does, because they're saying that TEI is part of the indicator they're going to use because of the budget.
Everybody see okay? Okay, good.
Right.
I apologize for the slight delay.
That becomes illegal.
We're going to go ahead and get started. With that, I'll turn it over to Mike.
Is this on? Okay.
Okay, Michael and Jim will get started.
All right, well, good afternoon / evening to everybody. Some new faces, so I'll introduce myself. I'm Mike Kaprowski, the new Chief of Transformation and Innovation. And Gilbert asked me to come today and talk to you about the draft comprehensive plan that you've probably heard about in some fashion. And so we thought that it'd be a good idea to talk about the plan and what's in it and where we're going from here. So back around the spring of 2013, the board asked us as an administration to start developing a long-term comprehensive plan that marries both the academic programs and the facilities together in one plan, and really have the academic programming drive the facilities plan. Sometimes what happens is that the academic guys do their planning over here and the facility guys do their planning over here, and maybe they meet in the middle, maybe they don't. But we wanted to be very intentional about that. And so hopefully this keeps you abreast of the process and lets you know where we're going. We want this to be a really inclusive process where it's a robust community conversation. And that's why we put this draft plan out there to begin with, so that we can have a conversation about something substantive on paper. And so this draft plan, it is just a draft. It's a starting point for community conversations. And so we put this out there in early February, and the conversation continues. So let me get going here. So if you had to put a mantra to the whole plan, it's really our needs, our kids. I don't think that that's being too hyperbolic. I think that what you do in your public education system will shape the future of your city. A skilled and educated population has never been more critical to a city's overall success than it is today. And it's funny. I mean, when you look at any important social metric that matters, whether it's low unemployment, high wages, low welfare, low prison rates, all of those things. I mean, you can tie it right back to the public education system. And so as this city continues to grow and transform, so too must our public education system. And so in order to produce the best learning outcomes, we have to think in innovative and transformative ways to produce those outcomes. So this is a quote that we've been using a lot. I like it to kind of set the stage. I think it kind of sums it up. My interest is in the future because I'm going to spend the rest of my life there. And I think that's, anytime a city starts talking about a bond or any one of these major investment opportunities, I think that's something to keep in mind. The decisions we make today will certainly impact us for years to come, and by contrast, what we don't do today, we'll deal with the consequences of that for years to come as well. So let's start where most of our conversation should start. Destination 2020, the strategic plan, laid a focus on the quality of instruction. And most of the initiatives that are wrapped up in Destination 2020 are paid for with existing district funds. But there are some key priorities going forward, some key academic priorities which will require significantly greater investment in order to accomplish the types of reforms that we want to accomplish. And those three big academic priorities are early childhood education, public school choice, and career and technical education. And we believe that we're poised to move from a good system to a great system by investing in these key initiatives. Now that being said, we know that all student learning happens in a built environment. And so a big part of those investments relate to our facilities. The last bond, the last major infusion of cash into our facilities was in 2008, and facilities require periodic investment from the community, and so it's been 7 years since that time. We think that it's important to start having that conversation again. So over the coming years, we're going to need facilities to house our earliest youngsters. We're going to need facilities to house the school choice opportunities that we have coming down the pike. We're going to need facilities that can efficiently offer the career and technical education equipment that we want to offer. So as you can imagine, the size is big. I mean, this draft plan suggests about $1.5 billion in possible investments, but that is the need. In fact, the need probably far exceeds $1.5 billion. This draft plan just suggests that. But again, I think it's important to keep in mind that there is no greater return on investment. If you do education right, there's no greater return on investment. Our theory all along has been what's up on the screen. That first, we have to outline what are our academic needs. What do our kids need from an academic standpoint? And second is, what do our kids need from an academic programming perspective? What are the programs that we need to match those needs? And then let's build a facilities plan to actually match the academic program design. So again, as I mentioned, the board charged us to do this. They tasked us to look at both the academic programs and the facilities. And so to that end, we put this draft out there. And we've also formed a future facilities task force. Back in September of 2014, we formed a future facilities task force that's going to consider this draft plan and whack away at it, vet it, make sure it makes sense. And ultimately, they'll come to the board with final recommendations later this summer. The task force is made of 27 community members. Each trustee has an appointee on the task force. There's a diversity of skill sets from lawyers to architects to pastors to principals, early childhood experts. So I think the draft plan is in really good hands. And I know the task force, their work is ongoing, and they're excited to do it. So the draft plan really invests along 4 key priority areas, 3 of which I've already talked about: early childhood, public school choice, and career and technical education. That's the academic program side. But oh, by the way, we have lots of existing general needs right now with our facilities. We have facilities that are seriously overcrowded. We have facilities that are not in very good condition, whether it's roofing or HVAC or lighting or plumbing. Those are needs that we have right now that aren't specifically tied to any academic program, but they're needs nonetheless. And so, we believe that this plan is forward-looking, but we also, in being forward-looking, you can't ignore the current situation that you have as far as overcrowding in facilities. So this plan also invests based on facilities and overcrowding. So let's go through each of those 4 buckets real quick. So again, four big buckets of investments. The first one is early childhood. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the research on early childhood education, that 85% of a child's brain development occurs before age 5. It's arguable that there is no greater educational investment than pre-K. And so we looked at areas where right now there's insufficient space to serve the eligible 4-year-olds in the area. And we also looked at demographic projections about where are 4-year-olds likely to be 3, 4, 5 years down the road, so that we can build in those places. The challenge of building for today is if you're not looking at demographic projections, you might not be hitting the population where it needs to be. And
just a quick question.
Sure.
So is the aim to build those facilities appended to existing elementary schools, or are we talking about independent, standalone pre-K facilities?
There's a mix of both. That's a great question. I would say, I'm kind of going off the top of my head, but I would say the lion's share are add-ons to existing facilities. But there are proposals in the plan for standalone pre-K centers, places that can specialize specifically in the pedagogy for 3 and 4-year-olds. So there's a few of those in there as well. But that's a great question. Thank you. The next thing is public school choice. Let me take a minute to just explain this, because it's not as obvious as pre-K. I think everybody intuitively gets pre-K. Let me just spend a minute to talk about public school choice. Choice means a lot of things to a lot of people in education. When Dallas ISD talks about public school choice, we're not talking about vouchers, we're not talking about charters, we're not talking about portfolio districts. We're talking about DISD schools that offer some specialized programming similar to our magnet schools. Pretty much to date, choice in Dallas ISD has meant our magnet schools. We have some of the best magnet schools in the entire country. We have, science and engineering, we have fine arts, we have Montessori, we have health professions, and our magnets are really tapping into the individualities that all kids have. I mean, we know that each kid is an individual. They aspire to do different things. They learn in different ways. And so why not tap into that with our schools? And I think that our magnets do a pretty good job of offering those specialized programmings to meet kids' interests and their aspirations and their learning styles. But the catch with magnet schools, of course, is that there are test-in requirements. There's academic entry requirements that you have to pass in order to get into magnet schools. And we've said that it's pernicious to assume that only the high-scoring kids can benefit from a fine arts school or from a science and engineering school. We think that every kid, even the most struggling kid out there, can benefit from a best fit school. And so that's what this is really about. It's about creating more magnet-type options, but without the entry requirements. So our goal is that by 2020, we will have created 35 new choice schools across the district. So basically, we're doubling the number of magnet schools, only they won't have entry requirements. So they'll be open to all kids.
Still keep the traditional magnet schools?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. We don't want to mess with what's already working. So those magnet schools are going to stay the same. Absolutely.
So, and just in terms of big picture numbers, so by 2020 or whenever you said those would be ready, how many of the students in the district would then be in a choice school, whether it's new schools or the magnets?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think it depends on the size and the scope of these schools. But I mean, the way I think about it is, 35 of these new choice schools, you have, I think, 20 some odd magnets. And so you're looking at 50 or so choice options out of 220 schools. So I'm throwing out kind of ballpark numbers, but that gives you a sense of the scale. So, still the name of the game is going to be comprehensive schools. When you look at the aggregate numbers, there's still going to be far more comprehensive schools than there will be choice schools. But we are going to increase the number. Does that make sense? Okay.
Well, how would you determine the type of magnet schools to create?
Great question. So we wouldn't call them magnet schools. They would be new choice schools. Sure. So the way we're thinking about it is creating a kind of a ground up competitive proposal process where educators are allowed to submit a proposal. Every educator has kind of their dream school. And so we have formalized a process so that people, school leadership teams, educators can submit a proposal to open up a Montessori school or a STEM school, anything they want to propose, and then they have to go through a competitive process, and then we select them through that.
These will not be charter schools?
No, these will be the ISD schools.
So like today in the news, they were talking about Madrano was pushing for public safety. Price pushed it as well, but public safety magnet for police and fire. So something that would be like a school choice.
It potentially could be.
If it happened.
If somebody got together and wrote down a proposal and it made it through the competitive process and they had a strong instructional plan, that's the one thing that we're going to really look at before we launch any school is, what's the instructional plan? Does it make sense for kids? And so
in that proposal, will they have to actually submit to you choice of campuses of where the campus is located, or will they have an opportunity to build a campus on their own?
These are great questions. I like these. So it depends. So some of our new choice schools will be existing neighborhood schools that want to kind of repurpose their academic model, but they stay in their existing facility. They keep their traditional attendance zones. They basically stay in neighborhood school, but they maybe do things a little differently. Say the community wants to implement a Montessori school. And so they could do that, and they stay a neighborhood campus.
And that's what, is it MATA?
Yeah, that's essentially what MATA did, right. But we're also entertaining proposals for new campuses altogether. But we aren't letting people fill out where the location would be. They're submitting an instructional proposal for a new school, and then if they get selected, then the district will work with them to find a placement.
Like, how does this relate to the current academy system we use at secondary schools right now?
The pathway? Are you referring to the
well,
pathways?
we have Academy Woodrow, we've got Academy of Business and Tourism, we've got a STEM Academy, we've got an IB Academy, and so on.
Yes,
So
great.
How does this relate to that?
Great question. So when we're talking about these new choice schools, we're essentially talking about school-wide models. If you have smaller programs within a school, that we would refer to those as choice programs, not necessarily choice schools. So the idea with choice schools is like our magnets. It would be school-wide. Every kid in the school would be participating in it. Schools that want to implement a smaller program within a school wouldn't have to go through a competitive process. That's a traditional decision that goes through our school leadership and all that. Does that make sense?
So 1 year you have 50 kids who want to be at the school, and the next year you have 500 kids who want to be at the school, and the year after that you have 100 kids who want to be at the school. These aren't going to be tied to neighborhoods, right? They can be open to anybody in the city who wants to make that choice.
So for the new campuses, for the existing campuses, they'll keep their traditional attendance boundaries. For the existing campuses that repurpose.
Well, I assume though parents would say, maybe I don't want the choice this campus is made, and I want to send my kids to no points choice, right? I want to send my kids to a different choice school. So difficult for you to predict what numbers of kids are going to be in each school.
So for the new campuses, we would give a priority enrollment window for kids that are in the immediate vicinity, and then we would open it up district-wide. But essentially what you would have to do is just, as with any school, you'd have to say, okay, we have 150 seats. And then if demand exceeds capacity, you just have to go to a lottery type system.
Okay.
But what he's saying, it could fluctuate. 1 year, it's 150. The next year, you only have 50 incoming kids. And then it goes up to 150. And so, again, you got leveling going on with teachers. you got budgets. So how are we gonna address that to make sure we have kind of an average enrollment throughout the years of the school being open?
Well, I think that part of the process is ensuring that these proposals are in line with community interest, so that we know that there is going to be a consistent demand for these options. And so, we would have, our goal is that the demand will exceed capacity. We want people to be interested in these schools. And so hopefully if we do our recruiting and we do our marketing right, we'll be able to continue to get applications to these choice schools year over year.
So the devil's in the detail, Mike, and in this, there's not a process in place to do this yet, but I'm looking at your slide here and it says budgeted for existing neighborhood schools that then repurpose into a future school, and you back up a bullet point that says locations are vacant buildings or non-traditional spaces, whatever the hell that is, and new school buildings. Of course, there's no bond yet, so there's no new school buildings. But how do you envision this thing working? Let's say I'm Lincoln. I want to be a neighborhood a future choice school. How does that work? Through the budgeting process. I come up with a great idea. You say it's a competitive process, but there's not a process outlined yet, I'm sure. But you go through that competitive process, Lincoln gets picked, and then what happens is Lincoln, what happens with 500 kids that are there? They get shuffled to another school in the neighborhood, or do they stay there and this is built on top of that? And if there's no capacity in that school, then how do you do that? So, so this isn't for every school. This would only be for schools that have capacity to have this program put in place today?
Yeah, we wouldn't force this on any school. That's the whole idea with the whole ground-up process, is that the school would have to want to do this. And we wouldn't kick out any kid. If an existing neighborhood school wanted to repurpose their academic model, we wouldn't kick out any kid. Again, it would essentially stay a neighborhood school. It would just be a community decision to kind of take it to the next level.
So, go ahead.
How are you funding this program in schools? Other than maybe bond, I don't know. How would it be funded?
Just from my experience or my knowledge of the process, because a friend of mine went through the process. So say you are a high school, you're Lincoln High School, and now you want to put on a proposal to be an early college like Trinidad. It's the type of curriculum that you are establishing for your entire campus, so that the students who you would normally receive now are not going to be under the regular high school comprehensive plan or the CTE program. We're going to be an early college. And so the neighborhood kids, in order to get into the early college at Mountain View, they have to have an application, go through the process of interviewing and all of that jazz just to get into the Trinidad Early College. Well, at Lincoln, now that we're going to be in early college, all of the kids who are coming here, and either other kids who want to make the choice, you can now come and join our school, so that we have more than just Trinidad.
So for the record, you're saying that a school choice is nothing more than a curriculum change in an existing campus?
Well, it depends, because there are some things like the Montessori or the dual language, or there is a K-8 program, which we don't have in the district, but where research says that it's very effective to have K-8 in one building. The options are...
But there's a difference between a curriculum change on a campus and public school choice, right?
Yeah, so let me clear it. So for existing neighborhood schools, if they go through the choice process, essentially what that means is they are repurposing their academic model, which in your terms would be a curricular change, STEM, Montessori, but they're essentially going to stay a neighborhood school. They maintain the same attendance boundary that they've always had. They stay in their existing facility. They're just basically offering a different model. It's very similar to what Mata Elementary did.
Let's use Mata as an example. So let's say my kid's in the Mata feeder pattern, right? And I was happy, but now say I don't want to do Montessori. Do I have the ability then to go to another elementary school, or because the community has sort of decided that I guess Montessori is the program for my kid?
Right, and so we've asked that proposals submit evidence that the community is on board with these efforts, but there's no way, there's always going to be a handful of kids that's just not for them. Right. And so we would provide other options for them to go elsewhere.
Including the transportation costs.
Yeah, that's what we're currently talking about in regs right now.
Okay. Yeah, because I know Sigerville has, veterinary science or something like that, vet tech. Samuel became early college. So is this kind of the same? It would be the same way as what we did in Siglerville and what we've done in Samuel, as far as the school choice plan.
My understanding of those programs is that they're programs within a school, and so
Right.
some kids participate in them and some kids don't. For the choice schools, for the existing neighborhood schools that repurpose, every kid in
So
the
the whole
school will be
population.
participating in the model. Same thing with Mata. Every kid in that school is going to be participating in the Montessori model. Now back to Mr. McNaughton's point, the new campuses would not just be a curricular change, they would also have a unique enrollment type option where they would be startup campuses. They would offer a specialized academic model, whether it's STEAM or Montessori. And the way the enrollment would work is that there'd be a priority enrollment window for kids in the immediate vicinity, but then we would open it up district-wide and try to promote more diversity. And I'm going to get into that in the next piece. But hopefully that helps clarify it a little bit.
It does. Thank you very much.
Sure. And so actually that's a perfect segue actually into the next point. So one of the logics behind public school choice is that we're creating more best fit schools for kids. Whether if kids want to go STEM school or fine art school, we're creating more of those best fit options. The other logic is that I think public school choice can promote more economic diversity within our district. I think we can't ignore the effects of poverty. It's not everything, but poverty matters. And so you all know that our neighborhoods are very segregated in this country, particularly in Dallas. If you look at the Pew residential segregation by income survey, Dallas is often at the very top of the list. And because you go to school based on your street address, if you have economically segregated neighborhoods, you tend to have economically segregated schools. And you couple that with kind of middle-class flight from the district over the past couple decades, and many schools in our district have very deep concentrations of poverty within the school building. I'm looking at the numbers right now, so don't quote me on these particular numbers, but something like 85% of our campuses have student bodies where 80% or more of the kids are on free or reduced price lunch. So most of our campuses showcase very deep concentrations of poverty. When you look at economically diverse schools in our district, there's like maybe two to four. Some of them are magnets. And when I say economically diverse, I mean a campus that's 40 to 60% of the kids are on free and reduced price lunch. We have a very small handful of those in our district. And so, unfortunately, there's a great body of research that shows that concentrating poverty in a school building creates serious challenges in terms of student achievement. And we know that there's a half century of research that shows that students do better in economically diverse schools. And again, I mean kind of the 50-50 breakdown of free and reduced price lunch and non-free and reduced price lunch. It's very interesting. Poor students in economically diverse schools outperform poor students in high poverty schools, and partly because they're more likely to be surrounded by academically engaged peers. There's lots of reasons for it. And also we know that, this is really interesting, poor students in economically diverse schools can outperform middle class students in high poverty schools. And this is consistent with a half century of research that shows that the socioeconomic makeup of the student body is really, really important. And then there's all the social and moral benefits of learning in an economically diverse setting. That's where the country's going. So we want to make sure that we're preparing our kids for the diversity that they will inevitably face in the real world. And so I think that public school choice can help move us a little bit more in that direction, where kind of back to the conversation that we had, where you open up the possibility of more students moving from different areas of the city and kind of promote more economically mixed schools, and potentially you can start bringing back people that have once opted out of the district, which I think is important as well. So, I think the public education system was meant to be the great equalizer. If you look back to Horace Mann, who was an education pioneer, said, it was supposed to be the great equalizer, a place where kids from all backgrounds, all walks of life, rich and poor, and everybody in between, could go and equally partake in the enterprise. When you look at that ideal and where we are, and many districts are in the position that we're in, the distance between the ideal and the reality is quite far. And so I think that through public school choice we can help to
Are you
move a
familiar
little
with
forward.
the M&M transfers that they had some years ago here?
I have seen it in the regulations, but I haven't studied up on it. So
Same concept, actually. Minority, majority transfers, where you could transfer to another school, like in North Dallas, those kids from West Dallas transferred to North Dallas, and et cetera. And they call them M&M transfers.
How'd that work out?
It worked for many years. Yeah, it worked. As a matter of fact, my daughter participated.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so I know that was a lot, that was sort of a tangential thing, but I like talking about it. I think it's important that we have those conversations. Okay, so next thing is career and technical education. If we want to prepare our kids for college and career, we have to make sure that we can offer them robust CTE opportunities, career and technical education. So whether it's HVAC or welding or plumbing or automotive, those things require specialized equipment in order to train on, and so we need facilities that can house those specialized pieces of equipment. And so you'll see that as part of the comprehensive plan, more facilities that can offer really robust CTE opportunities. And then the final bucket are the general needs. Again, we have all these forward-looking things, but we also have to be cognizant of what we have today. And we have facilities that are really overcrowded. There's some schools that are 150% overcrowded. And we also have some existing campuses, well, many existing campuses in the district that are not in terribly good shape. And so we rank those schools, and you'll see them in the plan as well. And the Future Facilities Task Force will vet those and come back with final recommendations.
So that was a question I had at the beginning, and I know you're going to address the Future Facilities folks here a couple of pages down the line, but I'm assuming you've read their preliminary draft, and I've spoken with Bob Marshall, and there's just a bucket full of money that's needed. I mean, as Dr. Terry will tell the group, we have not passed a bond election in the last 3 bond elections that was enough to even maintain our current inventory of properties, much less build new properties. So we are so far behind the 8 ball that it is, it's very much like the city of Dallas that needs $1 billion worth of infrastructure repair, and there's no effort to do that repair. So we have the need for going in and taking care of these facilities, and then I'm seeing you guys come in on top of that and saying, well, let's take a look at what we want to, where we want to be in the future, and try to meld those two together. So how is that process going to work? I know it's not in your plan, but or in the slideshow here. But who is going to make those decisions eventually about which schools are going to have to close, which schools are going to be repurposed? I mean, is this going to be open to the neighborhoods themselves, and have any kind of public input, or is this going to be an ad hoc decision? I know when we closed, 10 schools a few years ago to save a measly $11 million, we didn't really ask anybody, we just did it. And it was the recommendation of this commission that pushed that forward to the trustees. In retrospect now, it looks like we probably should have kept a few of those facilities open. So I'm really concerned. I mean, I understand you guys are looking to the future. I really appreciate that. But how are we going to reconcile the current needs with the dreams of the superintendent and the rest of the district and the parents to move forward? The devil's in the details, and there's no processes here. And I'm really more interested in how you're going to run these processes and take care of the process change management that needs to occur.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great question, and I often joke with the Future Facilities Task Force that we've given them a really, really difficult job, and it's a really difficult balancing act to outline where you want to go in the future, but also address the billions and billions of dollars of existing need that you currently have. And so our general approach is that we laid out a draft. And so in the comprehensive plan, you see a draft, school by school draft of where we think it makes sense to do X, Y, and Z. And we've essentially handed that draft over to the Future Facilities Task Force. And now the task force, their general approach, and I don't want to get too into this, but essentially their approach that they developed at last month's meeting is to kind of break it down into subcommittees and have subcommittees focus on a particular piece of this. So one committee can look at just renovations, and one subcommittee can look at overcrowding, and one subcommittee can look at CTE, and so they'll break it down by subcommittee so that the work is a little more manageable. And then as a group, they'll come together and kind of have that prioritization conversation. But it's going to be a very difficult conversation for the task force, and it's a difficult conversation every time we do this. Is how do you balance all of these things? I think the Parsons report came out, and what was it, Jim? 2.6 billion in needs, something. I mean, a much bigger number than the voters would be prepared to go for. So it's a challenge year in and year out. But we've essentially handed over the draft. We have two co-chairs on the Future Facilities Task Force, Craig Reynolds and Isaac Foz, and they are currently working with the task force to break it down into subcommittees, and it's really their process now to make sure that the plan is vetted and that it makes sense. And also there's a community engagement component that goes through the Future Facilities Task Force, so that really the idea is that those 27 people are kind of tentacles into their community. And there's road shows. For instance, right after this, I'm going to the City Council in Balch Springs to talk about some of these things. So it's really kind of a road show mentality.
So how does the plan you're outlining here for these 4 different pieces fit into the Future Facilities Task Force, which is to say there's a $1.5 billion proposed tax raise, right? And you're outlining here how you want to spend that among these 4 different areas. Is that something you're basically taking to the Facilities Task Force and they're going to work that into their plan, or is that separate?
We've given them our draft, our best work, and said, okay, it's yours now. See if it makes sense.
That includes, say, for the early childhood?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the whole plan. The whole plan is in their hands. So if you look up at the side, skip forward a few slides, but this is basically the charge that we've given the task force. One is consider the draft plan, make changes as necessary. Consider the funding scenario alternatives, whether that's a bond or a TRE. They're going to consider that funding scenario alternative. Incorporate community feedback and insight into the plan, and then they'll propose a 5-year comprehensive plan later this summer to the board. So it is very much in their hands. At this point, the administration is largely an internal resource group to them to help them dig into demographics or dig into X, Y, and Z, but it's really in their hands now.
So here's where I have a problem. I understand that there needs to be a conversation about what we want to do with our facilities, and there needs to be a conversation about how we're going to fund all of this. But this bridge loan that they're talking about is combining the facilities and the renovations there with curriculum dollar bills. Why combine them? Why is this in one economic package instead of 2 separate ones? It's not just a sales job that you guys are talking about, but for the very first time, I mean, intelligently, you want to integrate what's going to go on in those facilities with the facilities. I got that, but combining it into one financial package.
Yeah, I think the theory of action all along is that you need investments in the capital side of the house, and you need investments in the programmatic side of the house. That we could build pre-K space all day long, but if we don't have the programmatic money, the programmatic revenue to ensure that the teacher to student ratios are at the right level and all that sort of stuff, then we're not doing it the best way that we could. And I think that you can make the argument that, well, you just do the bond for the regular capital investments and then find the programmatic money elsewhere. But what we've said is that, in our draft plan is that it's a package deal, that if you're going to create the space for these programs, you got to ensure that you have the programmatic
But doesn't that bridge
money.
loan assume that 2020 plan is going to be approved sometime in the future by the trustees?
No, not necessarily. The bridge plan can
if
stand
that
alone.
bridge was just a standalone and you went ahead with the curricular changes that you're going to ask for in that bridge plan, they would stand alone regardless of what happens in the future?
I think if the bridge plan were passed and the long-term comprehensive piece was not passed. I still think students would be tremendously better off with the bridge plan than they are today, because the bridge plan addresses the most immediate needs when it comes to overcrowding and poorer facilities. It expands pre-K space, probably somewhere in the ballpark of 800 more pre-K kids. We could create space for
But
800
that
more
bridge
pre-K
plan,
kids.
but that bridge plan doesn't take care of the dollar bills that it's going to take to continue on with those curricular changes next year or the year after,
The
correct?
day-to-day.
I mean, come on, what you're doing is you're committing the district to funding these programs ad infinitum. And by the way, have the trustees agreed with the curricular changes that are being requested yet? I know they haven't, so, I mean, I'll answer the question.
Well, I think that's where the vote will be on Thursday. I mean, the trustees will have the bridge plan in their hands and will make that decision. Jim, do you want to talk about the
So
future?
why
Yeah,
don't you guys and put it all in one package? Why not
Well,
separate?
I think that Mike kind of addressed that. It's the immediate needs, is that the bridge plan is dealing with the top 9, I believe, immediate needs that we think needs to get started just absolutely right away. Now,
Immediate
we're
needs for
talking
what?
about
For physical plant?
physical
repairs?
physical, and the need, as Mike talked about, in terms of the pre-K program. And you'll see that the bridge plan is relatively less money than the comprehensive plan. The bridge plan is a maximum of 148 million in facility needs, and we think that even under the current projections that we're working on, the current budget, and if we needed to repurpose some of those funds, that we could do that and still carry on the programmatic needs that these new facilities would provide us with.
So what is the estimate on a yearly basis going forward that these programmatic needs are going to cost the district? Do you have any idea? I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire on this, I just got an estimate.
Yeah, Mike would probably be a better one, but I think it's close to approximately $1 million.
For all the programmatic needs going
No,
forward?
so let me pull it up.
That's damn cheap if that's the truth.
So it depends on whether you talk about pre-K, choice, CTE. If you want to talk about it all together, let me open it up real quick.
So like, what I'm thinking in my head, when I'm looking at the public school choice, and I see some 15, 16 on here, like Rogers Elementary. Dandy Rogers is up and running right now. So let's say they probably have about $400,000 allocated to them as a school. Just because they're becoming a personalized learning school doesn't mean that they're going to need a tremendous amount of more money than what they are already receiving as a regular campus. Correct? Like to open up, yes, for new technology or anything like that, but then as the years progress, then it's not going to be something that is.
Yeah, I think there's obviously the startup costs. So if you went personalized learning, for example, there might be some facility costs, which is captured in the bridge plan, as far as making the facility fit the actual academic model. But then there's also the programmatic costs of devices and those sorts of things. But a lot of that are kind of startup costs. Our expectation is that within 2 to 3 years, that these schools are financially sustainable based off of the funding that every school gets. So that's our goal, is to get them financially sustainable within a period of a couple of years. But early on, there are additional programmatic costs for sure.
Well, wait a minute, get them financially sustainable, what does that mean?
Well, so when you start off a new choice school, for instance, you launch a new startup campus, and you launch them, say, a grade at a time. So the proposal at Halsey, for instance, is that you launch a new STEAM school, and you start with just 6th grade, because you're kind of scaling it up to ensure quality. In the short term, the base money that you get per student might not be enough to cover the cost. So that's part of the programmatic dollars, is ensuring that you have enough for the planning year and the startup costs to make sure that school can grow to a point where they become sustainable.
So you're counting on student population growth to sustain the program? You're
enrollment
talking
growth.
about enrollment growth?
Enrollment growth in the particular school. But what I'm saying is you scale, a lot of these schools you would scale one grade at a time.
But you're taking students from one school and putting them in
Exactly,
here.
so the money
you
is
won't get
gonna
any
move.
You won't get any new monies per se, you're just transferring.
Yeah, just moving it around.
Moving it
If
around.
they leave my school, then I'm getting less money because now they're going to their school.
Right.
Well, but what we're talking about is additional revenue, and right now, there will be additional revenue to this, to the school district. We don't know how much right now. Last year, remember, the majority of our money comes from local sources based on ad valorem tax. And we had a 7% growth last year. The year before that, I think we had 5%. So, and we forecasting right now next year to be also 7%. So that will bring us more money. Also, there is 2 bills out there. I believe it's House Bill 1 and Senate Bill 2. And right now, we are estimating that will bring us about $40 million. Though we do not believe that that's the end. We don't think that we'll really know what the estimated revenue actually will be sometime until the legislature gets close to the end, which is in June. I believe the session ends about the middle of June, so hopefully we will know what that number is. And as we get closer and closer to June, and as the bills go forward, there's also a pre-K early childhood bill out there would also. And remember that the legislatures are facing the court case, which essentially found the school funding mechanism unconstitutional. And it's been my experience in the last 25 years that usually what the legislature does to combat the court's decision is to throw more money into the system. And so, that I do believe will happen. How much more, we don't know. How much more it's going to mean to this district, we don't know yet. Part of our problem in terms of doing the calculation projection is that that funding formula is 42-page formula, and we're what's called a Chapter 41 school, which means we're considered a rich school district. And up until last year, we had kind of a Pass, Go, Collect 200, which was called ASETAR, which is additional state aid for tax reduction. That's gone away, and we're now what's called a funding formula school, which means that we face recapture. So a certain percentage of the revenue that we will receive will go back to the state if the basic formula doesn't change, and we don't know exactly what's going to happen. So those are the kind of things that we're facing and we're looking at, and so this district, I do believe, in the end, will receive more money, and as we bring on more programs, we'll be able to afford. And I can tell you that since I've been here, that we've never had a negative budget. We've only added to the fund balance, and I know I'm considered a bundle of joy in cabinet meetings when I talk about costs, but my intention is certainly to keep this district on a solid financial footing.
So Dr. Terry, our esteemed John Dollander just landed in the back of the room here a few minutes ago, and he did not respond to the Dallas Morning News inquiry about the percentage of recapture that happens or that is possible to happen. Do you know what an estimate of that recapture would be? Is it about 40%?
No, I don't have an estimate right now. I can tell you on a per penny basis is that under the current rules, the first dollar, anything over $47.95 per watt per penny goes back to recapture. Then penny 4 through penny 101 through 104, which is where we're at, and this district's been stuck at that tax rate for, I believe 9 years now. None of that dollars goes.
Those are the golden pennies, correct?
Those are the golden pennies.
And then now we're into copper pennies.
And well, we only get to the copper pennies if there was a TRE election, and we got to a dollar, it would be $1.07, because the next 2 pennies, $1.05 and $1.06, are still considered golden pennies.
Okay.
But $1.07 through $1.13 are copper pennies. And what that means is that that by law, I believe, is $31.95, and anything collected over that per penny per watt would go back as recapture.
Okay. And by the way, you did a good job of schooling me on that 2 years ago, so I appreciate it. And actually, the golden penny, copper penny might be a good kind of a refresher for this commission on what that really means to the district. So to take that tangent off with the legislature, and again, we don't know what they're doing. I know that vouchers are now under, I believe, Senate Bill 4 today, a real thing. But last week or a week before, there was a tax benefit program that looks like it's going to squeak through that reduces the amount of education dollars taken from homeowners by about $100 per median family home or something like that in the district. Is that going to have an effect on us at all?
Well, maybe. I think what one of the bills out there is to increase the homestead exemption from $15,000, which is the current law, up to $45,000 per exemption. The problem is that this district also gives an additional 10% exemption on top of it, which actually is a choice by the board. And the way that we're funded in a certain sense is based on our wealth. And so the lower our wealth is, and our wealth is based on the total assessed value divided by our weighted average daily attendance, and that gives us then our weighted average, our wealth per average daily attendance. And so what happens is that because we give that additional 10%, the money goes away, but we don't get any benefit from the state. And there is a bill out there to counter that 45,000 that would allow us to in fact reduce our wealth by, I think, a certain percentage, so that our wealth per penny then would drop down, and that gives us more money. And I think the calculation right now is $17 million. But you must remember.
If I could just, this is important and fascinating, but I think some of us are going to get lost here. Mike's, is an aficionado of all this detail.
Thanks for taking that, Jim.
I would love to keep.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sort of about that.
I have a question pertaining to this.
Sorry.
Personalized learning.
Can
I personalized learning? What we were talking about.
Perfect.
Okay.
Can I just ask Mike has another commitment shortly,
Okay.
so I'd like him to proceed with his president, answer your questions as quickly as possible. And then I have TEI right after that, so if we could just remain focused on the
I assume
actual
it's
presentation.
self-explanatory, but does that reduce the class size?
So under the personalized learning prescription, there actually is no prescription about class size. Really, it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that you should have a smaller class size or a larger class size.
I was just wondering how that was. Okay.
It's the same ratios.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So let's. I think we discussed some of this.
Too much in detail.
Yeah. So this gives you a sense of what we've done in the past couple bond programs, and I think just the big takeaway here is that these programs can be really productive. There's a lot of good things that can happen for a district when you invest this sort of money into it. And so you can see what we did with the O2 program. You can see what we did with the OA program, which is still a little bit ongoing. There's still a few projects wrapping up. So just gives you a sense of what can be done. But the challenge, as Mr. McNaught said, I mean, it's a balancing act. The needs are great. The needs are very, very great. But it's also important to map out a path forward at the same time.
So $30 million is coming out of the 2008 bond program to your bridge plan as is?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think there's a couple slides in the bridge plan that I'll focus a little bit more specifically on the bridge plan. Okay, so the bridge plan, the logic here is kind of twofold. One is we have immediate needs that really need not wait, should not need not wait. We have overcrowding, facilities in poor condition. There's choice schools we want to get off the ground by August of 15. There's pre-K shortages that we have right now. And then the other reality is that the district is in pretty sound financial condition. And so we actually have the unique opportunity to do something about these immediate needs right now. And so that's where the bridge plan comes into play. It's a proposal for $135 million to tackle our most pressing general facility needs, our most pressing pre-K needs, get school choice kind of off the ground. So this is really, as the name would suggest, it's a bridge plan. It's designed to get us from one point to the other. And I do think that it stands alone as a good initiative for kids. And it would be funded out of 3 different funding streams. Of course, none of this has been approved by the board yet. That's what they're voting on this Thursday. But the proposal is that about $30 million would come out of the leftover 08 bond money. And then you'd have somewhere in the $60 to $75 million range for maintenance tax notes. And then the rest would be general funds. So it's kind of a mix of funding streams that would go toward the interim bridge plan. And then these slides kind of tell you what is actually in the bridge plan. And so we try
no dollar bills.
We do have a spreadsheet where there are dollar bills. I didn't put it on this slide, but there are.
I think in the email you got.
Yeah, there should be dollar bills associated. So we identified the campuses that are both overcrowded and in really poor condition, and we prioritize those on this list. And so those are kind of the top 9 most needy campuses. And then we also looked at, again, the demographic projections, places where pre-K portables are not hitting safety standards, places where there are existing pre-K shortages, and that's where these recommendations came from for early childhood. And then public school choice, we identified the choice schools that we want to move forward with. We already have many of them identified, and then some of them will be coming through the next round of the competitive application process. And one of those schools is Holsey Middle School, which we're really excited about. It's a vacant building in Southwest Dallas, and we've said all along that when you close a school, in some ways you kind of close a community. And so the reverse logic is true, that if you can reopen a school, you can really re-energize the community. And I know the Holsey community has been really excited and has really strongly advocated for some sort of choice offering in their area. And so we're excited that Holsey is in the bridge plan.
Does the renovation include putting in windows?
I think that's a big chunk of it, yeah. Yeah. And so the last thing to keep in mind is the vacant buildings. Again, we think that the bridge plan has a lot of innovative solutions for what to do with our vacant buildings, because again, they're just sitting there. When you close them, you close the community, and when you reopen them, you can re-energize the community. So we have a proposal in there for Holsey. We also have a proposal in there for Harley and Arlington Park. Harley is in, where is Harley? It's Townview, right? It's right next door to Townview. Right.
Be a great early education center.
Yes, that is the proposal. So the proposal for Harley and Arlington Park is in the medical district near Parkland. Harley and Arlington Park, the proposal there is to create an early childhood center, a place that focuses on early childhood. It focuses on the pedagogy, it focuses on the needs for our earliest youngsters, and so that's the proposal for Harley and Arlington Park. And then finally, the Fraser in the heart of Fair Park, and I know Marion has been involved in these conversations, but we're excited about what we could possibly do at Fraser as a one-stop shop for wraparound services for adults. We know that the success of kids is very much linked to the ability of their parent to overcome the challenges that come with living in poverty. And so I think that we can do some really, really great stuff in that community. And it would translate into better results for the ISD kids as well. So Fraser is an exciting opportunity. If you look at the statistics from that community, there's no doubt that it's a very, very struggling community. This proposal could really have some great effects there. So we're very excited about what we can do with some of these vacant buildings.
I see Hartley and Townview's educational program, section of their program, really working well together.
Yeah,
because those students are across the street from Hartley.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool synergies that can happen here with Arlington Park too. An early childhood center right in the medical district. There's some cool synergies that can happen with some of these proposals.
My question,
Yeah.
the early childhood, is that going to be open for all income brackets, or is it still going to be based on, depending on what the legislature does? on our current model right now where it's language or income.
Yeah, I think, I don't want to speak for Alan Cohen, but I know what Alan would say, that it's important that we have low-income kids who benefit the most from a pre-K program. We have low-income kids where we have shortages for them. And so our priority right now has to be ensuring that we have enough seats for the kids who need it the most. But I think that's a conversation that we'll continue to have going forward. But right now the focus is on the kids that benefit from pre-K the most, which are our low-income kids.
So when you looked at schools like Fraser that's closed or vacant building, did you look around the surrounding area to see if there was a Head Start facility?
Yeah, there's a Head Start right across the street.
Right across the street.
Mary, what's the name? I forget the name of it. It's the Margaret Cohn Head Start Center, which is right across the street.
Is it hardly 2 levels?
Harley is 2 levels, that's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Yes.
would this be just for pre-K or would it be, but they have 2 levels? I'm thinking about guidelines for it.
Yeah, I think I think that there are guidelines that the pre-K students have to be on the first floor.
Yeah.
I think that's right. So
they still can go upstairs.
Well, I know they can, but I'm just saying that there is a guideline.
yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
Did you say Fraser was going to be
Maybe get a waiver or
Pre-K?
something, I guess.
Early childhood.
early childhood?
I'm sorry.
No.
Fraser is
It's gonna be
the
for parent-
wraparound services,
wraparound services.
for adults and mainly DISD parents. So things like GED skills, job training skills, re-entry programs, things of that nature that can really help the adults in that community overcome the challenges of living in poverty, and we think that will translate into better results for kids as well.
Parents can go upstairs and probably, because they'll have to have probably some parent programs.
Yeah, well, 2 years ago, SMU was really excited about that campus, even holding their general education classes upstairs and then building at Harley, and then having, 2-way mirrors downstairs so that the kids could, the SMU students could observe pre-K students and learn, best practices. It could be really an awesome opportunity for the district, so.
Yeah, we're very excited about it.
Very cool.
So, just to follow up on Mike's point, so 153 million bridge, with that, together with these, the board is, in terms of what's going on in all these schools, that's part of what the board is focused on and will be voting on?
Yeah, we're
So
essentially asking.
it's not just the bridge they're going to vote on, they're going to vote on the commitment to do the recommended enhancements, improvements.
So this is, what I scroll through right now is all the bridge plan. So the bridge plan contains the 9 general needs campuses. It contains the early childhood expansion campuses. It contains the public school choice campuses, and embedded in that are all the vacant buildings. So we're essentially asking for a vote on the whole plan as a package deal.
Yeah, but the trustees, I am sure, will come back with some tweaks to that. I understand that there's some pushback already for the dollar bill amount for Lakewood, that they want to cut that. So is there wiggle room in there? Are you guys prepared to do some horse trading and to make this thing work, or is it the package?
You're putting me on the spot. I mean, I think the board will, that's up to the board. I think as an administration, we've put our best plan out there, and that's our plan.
Okay, cool. Mike, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
A lot of good information.
Any other questions pop up, Gil can give you my contact information and all that stuff. So
See you on the 6th in Signalville.
sounds good. I'll be there.
Well, thank you very much. At this time, I'm going to give the opportunity for you guys to move up here. I feel like you guys are you can bring your name tag and pick a spot. Yeah, if you just don't mind scooting over, that would be great.
What's that?
Can you be running the meeting?
No.
So you can drive.
There we go.
Oh, yeah, here.
We'll let Coach go.
Wait, you right there?
No.
Do we have the presentation? It should say TI.
No.
They're gonna concentrate on
Because of the math not until May, yeah. I was going to talk about that conversation.
Her presentation should be on the desktop.
I don't think it is. It's under the K. It's the under the K.
Do you ever on your car? Come on, I'm like,
Do you have it on a zip drive? Okay, hold on.
I wouldn't know this is gonna, I was telling her.
I'm sorry, did you not find it?
It's not on here.
Oh, did she go?
Turn it off here.
that's what I was looking at.
I'm just gonna have her save it, and then I'm gonna run back in there. Yeah.
I thought the show was done, that
We did the 2 slides. I don't know if we had her presentation. I don't know.
Yeah.
Unless he put it somewhere that I don't know. Well, it's on here.
It's already there.
It's already on there? Okay. Let me have this back then. No, that's not it. Okay, yeah, that's how. Yeah, it would be on here, so it's not on here.
Tell them to go ahead and put those 2 slides on.
Yes, where you
Is this something? We should have a couple.
And they love it. Kids love it.
It's had 2 documents.
They love it.
It would take us a couple of minutes just to, we just had a couple of issues technically, but I apologize for that. But we're about to,
Yeah, it should be there. Okay, you gonna hand me that? Drew? All right, thank you.
so Lindsay's here to present on TEI. I'll let her introduce herself, and then by that time, hopefully we'll have it right up on the screen in just a couple of minutes.
We have hard copies.
Yeah, we have hard copies.
Right.
They're so colorful.
Good evening, my name is Lindsay Koshat. I am the director of TEI. It's great to be here and see a few familiar faces, a few people who are pivotal in the, helping us design the system over the last several years. Several years ago, the Board of Trustees did vote to start designing a new teacher evaluation system. And so we had several committees that some of you were on, many parents and community members, teachers and administrators who really helped give input into the design of what is now TEI. Back then it was only known as the new teacher evaluation system that was under design. Ultimately, our goal is to ensure that every student has an effective teacher in front of them and that they are college and career ready. The design of TEI draws heavily upon research that's come out over the last several years on teacher effectiveness. And so the Gates Measures of Effective Teaching study is the most comprehensive research to date on teacher effectiveness. And the ultimate finding of several years of research was that effective teaching can indeed be measured. Thank you. Catch up to where I was. Here we go. And so we know that under the PDOS system, we saw the same trend happening here in Dallas that we saw at the state level, which was similar to what is going on nationally with ineffective teacher evaluation systems that don't allow us to really differentiate our most effective teachers from those who are least effective, where around 97% of teachers were seen as satisfactory or meeting expectations or above. And so in order to really help identify which of our teachers need additional support, maybe they're not performing as well, and really recognize and reward those teachers who are most effective, it was in that vein that TEI was designed, ultimately to ensure that our most effective teachers are recognized, and then we put supports in place to ensure other teachers are successful as well. The ultimate goal is to ensure that every student has an effective teacher in front of them. And so you can think of TEI as a teacher evaluation system plus. It's more than just an appraisal instrument. It also encompasses professional development through our supporting excellence work, and a strategic compensation model through rewarding excellence, which we'll speak to in just a few minutes. But the defining excellence piece really is the evaluation itself. And there are three primary components that make up teachers' evaluation under TEI. So performance, which is at least 50% of every teacher's evaluation, comes from the observation data. So what our teachers are used to, a majority of their evaluation coming from under PDOS. Achievement is the student achievement data that factor in, and we'll speak more to this momentarily, but growth is measured, it is reflected in the achievement data that are used. And then lastly, student surveys, student perceptions. The research coming out of the MET study showed that there's actually a strong correlation between student perceptions on these research-based surveys and their achievement. So this is the evaluation process at a very high level. I've been told this is some of teachers' favorite slides because they can see it, the whole snapshot in one, and see what the year will look like as it progresses. So early over the summer, we trained all of our administrators to ensure that every administrator was TEI certified. In the fall, teachers all worked on creating their student learning objectives and their professional development plans. Throughout the year, we were having observations, and we'll deep dive into each of these components in just a moment, but just at a high level so you can see what's taking place when observations are occurring throughout the year, ongoing feedback for teachers. We're actually going to be administering our student surveys the week of April 6th, so coming up in just a couple weeks. SLOs, we're going to wrap those up before the end of the school year. Assessments are taking place. You can see a couple of our assessment windows for the district here. The Distinguished Teacher Review is well underway right now. That process will be wrapped up by end of May. And then all teachers will receive their evaluation scorecard in September of 2015 that reflects their results. And for teachers who are eligible for additional compensation, they'll see that in their October 2015 paycheck. So thinking about teacher categories, when we were in the early stages of designing this system, it didn't encompass all teachers, but then we received ongoing feedback from teachers, even though I'm a specialist teacher, I'm this type of teacher, I want to be included under the new system. And so we eventually added additional categories. A majority of all teachers fall under category A. And this is our 3rd through 12th grade teachers. Primarily, they have the assessment data needed to make up the full 35% component for student achievement data. So this is about half of our teachers. Category B includes a lot of our kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd grade teachers who do not take the student surveys. So some of you may remember when we were beta testing student surveys a couple years ago, we actually did use them at the K2 level, and the feedback we received from teachers, it was just too difficult to administer. And so based on that feedback, we created category B, which has this student achievement data, but it doesn't have surveys included in there. So that additional 15% that would have been taken up by surveys was absorbed by performance. And then category C is our smallest category. They do not have all of the assessments they need, but their students, because they are 3rd through 12th grade teachers, will have the surveys. And then lastly, category D. So These teachers, a lot of them are pre-K teachers, and then teachers not of record, such as our tag or inclusion teachers, do not have all the assessment data, and then also will not take student surveys. So as we think about performance, a teacher's performance, again, these are the ongoing observations that take place on campus that our administrators are doing on a daily basis in order to provide ongoing feedback. The teacher performance rubric was designed looking at a lot of research-based instruments and then getting feedback through the beta test. We beta tested the rubric and got feedback from administrators and teachers who had those debrief conversations afterward in order to continuously refine the language and the rubric itself. We've been told that compared to PDOS, that the rubric actually is much clearer in terms of how we are defining what is expected of teachers in the classroom. It was much more vague, the language on the previous instrument, and so many teachers have actually shared that they appreciate the expectations are very clear for them, what their administrator is looking for when they walk in the room because of the new performance rubric. In terms of spot observations, these are the brief walkthrough observations that last 10 to 15 minutes that every teacher receives. Most of our teachers are receiving a minimum of 10 spot observations and receive feedback after each one on how to, on what they're doing well and areas of improvement with instructional strategies. Our DTR eligible teachers this year are receiving a minimum of 6 because they had their summative done early in the year, and so our TEI experts actually voted and decided to reduce the number of spots required for this group of teachers. This is similar, the extended observation is similar to what was required under PDOS. There's one extended observation, which is 45 minutes in duration or one complete lesson. The extended observation scores all indicators in domains 2 and 3, so the observable indicators. And then there's also written feedback and a conference held afterwards, similar to what was done under PDOS. So you can see the 4 domains of the performance rubric here. And then lastly, the summative performance evaluation. And so to differentiate the different types of observations, the spot observations, they assess the 5 key indicators that were really high leverage that we're focusing on as a district. The teachers are used to receiving feedback on those indicators regularly. The extended observation assesses all of domains 2 and 3. And then the summative performance evaluation, every teacher will have one summative, and that assesses all 19 indicators across all 4 domains. And so the summative is what a lot of teachers are equating to their performance piece when they think 50% of my of my evaluation comes from performance. It's really coming from the summative, which reflects all of the data points, all of the observations over the course of the year, and it will also reflect the growth a teacher makes over the course of the year. So if there is a teacher who is really struggling in the early months and their spot observations aren't quite as good, but based on ongoing feedback and coaching and professional development opportunities, they grow, and so they're solidly proficient by second semester, the summative would reflect that growth. We don't have a numerical average that early spots might bring down a teacher, because we do want to give them credit for the growth that they've made over the course of the year. In terms of achievement, categories A and B have the full 35%, and this is because they have assessments that their students take that make up this 35%, and we'll look at a couple examples of achievement templates. But these 2 categories, their achievement is also made up of 5% comes from the school star results and 5% from the student learning objective, and the other 25% is from individual assessments. For categories C and D, these teachers do not have assessment data that can be linked to these teachers, and so 10% comes from School Star and 10% from the student learning objective. That is, I believe I have a slide. Yep, here we go. The student learning objective is a research-based goal setting. If you are familiar with SMART goals, it's very similar to a SMART goal that a teacher sets in conjunction with their administrator, and it's really a piece that teachers get to own. So when having these conversations with teachers, a lot of them, once they realize that they have input, it's a way that, let's say a standardized test, I hear this often, that standardized tests do not measure everything that makes me a good teacher. And we agree, and this is an opportunity for a teacher. Let's say that writing is not assessed at their grade level, but they focus heavily on writing skills in their classroom. They can create an SLO around writing to ensure that their students' growth over the course of the year can be measured and is indeed factored into their evaluation. And so SLOs are scored twice. So once in the fall, the goal setting based on the SLO rubric to ensure it's a rigorous objective, and then the goal accomplishment in the spring. What % of your students actually mastered that objective over the course of the year? You can see here, this is an example of one of our achievement templates. Let's see, it was almost 2 Junes ago. Once we hit June, it'll be 2 years ago. We convened a few hundred teachers at Adamson and from all different content and grade levels, and they gave us input on which assessments would provide a fair evaluation for them. And so they actually sat down and discussed with other teachers from their content and grade levels both the assessments and then the weights. So in multiples of 5, it makes sense for this particular assessment to be weighted X amount. And so these achievement templates, we have around 51 of them. They're available online for teachers to see, and this really ensures that it provides a unique evaluation based on their content area. For a teacher who teaches multiple grade levels or multiple content areas, so if I teach 3 periods of physics and 2 of chemistry, they would have a hybrid achievement template, and it's actually done based on the number of students in each. So it's not based on the number of courses, but based on the ratio of students in each content area. Here are a couple more examples for elementary art and a 5th grade generalist teacher. And so for every assessment or measure, we actually calculate it in 3 ways when possible. And this is what really I think differentiates TEI from many evaluation systems out there, that many systems really only look at passing rate. And we agree that since we have varying student populations across the district, that isn't fair for teachers if they are teaching students who don't start off on grade level. And so because of that, we have 3 different metrics for every assessment. So if you think of every pie chart or measure will be calculated in 3 separate ways. And then teachers get the best of the 3 for every measure. So one is just a status metric, what % of your students got level 2 recommended. The other 2, however, are growth metrics, and they really factor in the growth a teacher has with their students over the course of the year to ensure that our teachers who are highly effective, even if their students aren't on grade level at the end of the year, they're getting credit for helping push those students and make all of those academic gains over one school year. And so this just highlights that even if a teacher's students aren't proficient, they're going to receive a lot of credit for helping push students ahead. This example shows you the breakdown of how the different metrics work. So for this teacher, for their STAR results, if they were to get, if this wedge you can see is out of 15 percentage points, this scenario, the teacher received 9 for passing grade, 9 for under CEIs, and 12 for academic peer groups. So this particular teacher for this one assessment would receive 12 out of 15 points because that's the best of the 3. For student surveys, again, this is only 3rd through 12th graders who are taking the surveys. It is a research-based survey. We did not create it internally. We are going with Panorama as our vendor. And it will be administered the week of April 6th in both English and Spanish. I've included a few sample items. And a lot of teachers, we have these, we did ask our TEI experts, since we take a lot of decision points to them to give us input as we're moving forward this year. And they voted to go ahead and post all of the questions, the survey questions online in order to ensure the process is transparent. We don't want this to be overly daunting for teachers, and so they can go ahead. We're encouraging them to take a look at the survey questions now so they know what types.
When did we do that?
They've been posted for the last couple months on the TEI staff resources page. So the English and Spanish versions are online.
you guys sent an email out about this?
We publicized it to our TEI experts, and then I believe it was in one of the superintendent's notes. I'd have to check back, but the TEI experts were encouraged to take it to their staff as well. And administrators have been updated on the fact that the questions are online. So I know some of them have separately encouraged their staffs to go look, at the website because we want everyone to see the questions.
Okay, I had no idea they were on.
Yep.
And do I guess our testing coordinators are the ones going to be in charge of this?
Exactly. So testing coordinators received training last week. There were 2 different trainings offered, and they are the POC on every campus.
Because we talked about this with my staff today, and one of the questions they brought up, and I mean my testing coordinator was there, so I can answer it, is when students ask for clarification on a question, is that person that's giving that survey, are they going to be able to answer that for them?
So it has a script, very much like standardized tests, and so it will tell them explicitly, what is allowable and what isn't for each one.
Right.
There's certain accommodations that are also being made, just like you would have, for other students. And so I know that we have Braille, large print. The survey is available in English and Spanish for students, and then also for struggling readers, they're going to be reaching out to administrators in advance, ensuring if someone needs a separate read aloud, that those students are pulled so that they fully understand the survey questions as well.
Lindsay, can you give us some context? I know they're going to be given during the second period class.
At the secondary level.
And if a teacher does not have a second period class, will that teacher still have questions asked of her students in another class? Could you speak to that more?
Yep, great question. And so at the secondary level, they will be administered in the second period class. At the elementary level, it'll be before lunch.
Okay.
So administrators have some flexibility based on their campus schedule. And they're doing it at the secondary level. It's a stratified random sampling method. And so what that means is all second period teachers will hand out envelopes to every student in their class at that time.
Okay.
And they'll take out the envelopes and there'll be 2 surveys inside with the teacher's name at the top. And so there are students, it is a sample of teachers, students from across all of their classes that they teach. So even if they themselves do not have a second period, their students will be completing surveys on them at that time.
Good enough, thank you.
Yeah.
Are there numerical answers to these questions? How do they answer them? ABC?
It's
Numerical?
it has, and I would have to pull up the one online. It has different answer choices. This is actually something that differentiates this survey with other student surveys that are out on the market. The answer choices vary by item. So it may say that all of the time or rarely, or they're not it's not ABC or 1, 2, 3, 4.
All of the time?
Yeah. So it depends on the item itself being asked.
Okay. Now, the 3rd grade students, they have to read the questions, the
Yes,
survey?
so great question. So there's a 3rd through 5th survey, so they made sure that the reading was appropriate for 3rd grade students.
So it may not be in this context.
Correct, so these were just a few random items pulled.
All right.
And then there's a 6-12 survey, so thank you for clarifying. And if, as a former 3rd grade reading teacher, I absolutely understand that some students will not be able to read the items, and that's why the administrators, they're going to be working closely with testing coordinators to identify which students should be pulled separately for a read aloud based on their reading levels. Yeah, good question.
So I have a question, just, I haven't met you before, and there's no background on you that I am aware of that was sent to us. What is your background, and how did you get to be head of the TEI initiative?
Yep. So I came to the district several years ago, and in my previous role, helped work on the design of several systems, including how we're hiring in the district, and also on the design of TEI as it was underway, a year before it passed. Prior to that, I studied education policy and management. Prior to that, I taught in a couple different states.
Okay, so that's cool, thank you. At least there's somebody that's got some education background. So this is clearly based on the Gates MET program, right?
It draws upon different bodies of research, but it definitely reflects some of the MET studies findings.
Well, I mean, you had a quote right here in the start
Yep.
from 2010 from MET, so I'm assuming that the 3 legs that you're going on here is drawn from that. And it sounds like you really have a lot of faith in this. So why?
I think that just in general,
No, specifically, why do you have faith in this? Where's it been done that you've seen that this is really going to work and improve student achievement?
I mean, I think looking specifically at the MET study, that's a fair question. Looking specifically at the MET study, it showed that when used in conjunction, when used in isolation, performance alone, we know, as we saw under PDOS, does not accurately identify our most effective teachers and teachers who need additional support. When used in conjunction with student achievement data and student surveys, however, it became a much more reliable indicator of which of our teachers were the most effective and again, we don't want to only look at those who are highly effective. We also want to grow our teachers. That's part of it. Put sports in place in order to ensure that teachers are effective. This isn't just about pushing teachers out. It's ensuring they are receiving support and growing too over the course of the year.
Were you able to do a pilot study with a sample of students to take this survey just to see how well they received it?
So we beta tested student surveys last year on 25 campuses in order to get feedback. And so we received some valuable feedback about just the administration of the survey at that time. That's when we learned that some of our students did need an accommodation, such as pulling out struggling readers. We got the feedback that it really didn't make sense at the K2 level, trying to administer in small groups. It was just too difficult for those age groups. And so we did beta test them on 25 of campuses last year.
So Lindsay, are you familiar with the National Education Policy Center?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so, there's been 2 studies that have been released, one in 2013 and one just a few months ago, about this sort of approach. And both studies, one from University of California, one from University of Colorado, say that the 3 main measures, the student surveys, value-added test score growth, and observation of teachers, was not predictive at all of teacher effectiveness. I mean, and Bill Gates himself in the Wall Street Journal walked away from this approach about 8 or 9 months ago and said that this isn't the direction to go in. Now I know the district's committed to this, but I'm just interested to hear your take on all this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's always a body of research out there to support different stances, right? So if you are in support of certain things, you can find research that will defend a certain stance. And so I think that there is research out there just in terms of how do we identify teachers who are more effective than others that show this approach actually is more effective.
Can you send us that research?
I can definitely look and find specifically.
Because, I've taken a look at this. I helped Edwin Flores, Trustee Flores, a number of years ago as he was trying to put together this kind of a system. I met with Randy Weingarten 5 years ago as AFT was struggling to try to put together some sort of a peer review system for teachers. And, this is a difficult thing to do. Everybody wants it, including me. I'm a proponent of having some sort of an effective peer-reviewed evaluation system. I'm not sure this is the bee's knees, as my parents would say, or not. But there are certainly a lot of teachers who have some serious questions about this approach. And 2 statisticians, one that was employed by the district and does work for other districts, is telling me that this is no better than a coin toss. It's statistically nonsense. It's just static noise. And nobody wants these kinds of observations to be putative measures inside the classroom. And a lot of teachers felt last year and perhaps even this year that was what was happening. But that aside, taking this as I'm a computer programmer. I write algorithms to do this kind of stuff, right? So and I've done this kind of research and evaluation systems for major Fortune 500 corporations. Nothing that I see in this approach makes any sense to me as being a realistic evaluation of teacher effectiveness. Tell me why you're sold on it. Give me a sales pitch. Why do you think this is really going to work?
Look, we're here to inform this commission about what the district has decided. This has been voted on and
And
decided.
passed.
I'm not saying your question isn't a good question, but this is not the forum.
Well, but
Thank you,
we were
Jim.
asked though, how money should be spent and is the money in fact going toward achieve the goals that the district has? And if he thinks that this program, and I think a lot of the same things he's thinking, is not in fact helping us achieve the goals, then the superintendent asked us to tell him whether his plan is aligned with the way the money is being spent. If a significant amount of money, a very, very significant percentage of the different district's finances are going into this program, and it turns out it's not helping us achieve the goals that the district has, then we may have a real disconnect between how we're spending money and what it is we're trying to do.
Well, I think, Pete, just a second, I think, Peter,
Oh.
you're absolutely right. But the fact is that we haven't implemented TEI using dollars yet, and I think that you're going to need to give it a year or 2 years to see, in fact, if it accomplishes what it accomplishes. And as Jim has pointed out, I mean, the board has adopted this, and this is the direction we're going to go.
But your budget, forthcoming budget, is going to be based on the dollar bills that the teachers are going to receive because of this system, correct?
That's
It's
correct.
a performance-based budget. We're no longer zero-based. This is all, it's coming down to, you gotta guess through this system what a teacher is going to earn and then budget it, right?
Yeah, we've already done that.
Well, but is it not based on a bell curve? I mean, where X
That's
percentage
correct.
of students,
That's correct. That's
X
correct.
percentage of teachers will be at this level, and
Right.
X percentage at that
Yes,
level?
Correct.
And if you look at the data of our students, as far as the performance of our students, then you can pretty much look at the effectiveness level based on the instruction. So if all of our students were achieving, then we wouldn't necessarily have to look at a bell curve because all of our kids are achieving. We have the best teachers around, but that's simply not true. And the state is adopting a new instrument to evaluate teachers anyway. They realized PDOS wasn't the way to go. Their model is pretty much close to ours. Are there major components that are different between what the state is proposing instead of PDOS? Because they have specific school districts that they are using as a model for right now to test their system out, correct?
So, Jim, what other districts in the state of Texas use performance-based budget?
I don't know of any districts within the state that are using performance-based budgeting, nor do I know any system within Texas that are using a pay teachers by performance. I mean, this to me is revolutionary. This is, in fact, I came out from private industry, and this is, I think, truly a revolutionary way. And I think that if, in fact, this does work, and I don't know whether it's going to work or not. But the board has decided that this is the direction we want to go. I think it's a very unique, and it's certainly something that we need to give a try. And all of the school districts that I know do it. Longevity. You last one more year and you get more money if the money's available. Now Houston has got I would consider more of like a performance bonus plan. You get your base pay based on longevity, and then if you perform within the classroom, you'll get X number of dollars. So there's those systems like that. But this is truly unique to the state of Texas, and I think that in fact we need to give it a chance.
Well, I just have one thing. To me, it doesn't matter which instrument you use, and it doesn't matter which domain. It's that teacher teaching to mastery. And while you're watching that teacher, did those students in that classroom, at least 90% you will know, did they learn what was taught? And there's a way of actually appraising that. So that's what I
want to be mindful of the time and just go quickly. Our distinguished teachers, so as you can see here, these are the different effectiveness levels in general that every teacher will have the opportunity to earn. Distinguished teachers, we are defining those that reach the proficient 2 and higher. Those levels are considered distinguished. And those teachers will undergo a separate distinguished teacher review process, which, as I mentioned, is well underway now. We have around 1,400 teachers in the district going through DTR right now, which is twofold. So they submitted an application online that they had the opportunity to highlight their leadership, lifelong learning, and contributions to the profession experiences. And then separately, they're receiving a DTR observation by a 2 to 3 person observation team made up of at least one administrator and one content area specialist, depending on what they're teaching. And so all of that data will be factored in if teachers are going through DTR with their achievement, performance, and student survey data if applicable. So quickly, I'll go through supporting excellence. We understand that if we're holding teachers to a higher level of accountability, we do want to make sure that they are supported. And so we're putting in place additional PD opportunities for teachers in order to ensure that they can target areas they'd like to grow in. So there are a few listed here. Our teaching and learning department, they oversee supporting excellence, and we work closely with them as they're building these out in order to ensure teachers are receiving a lot of great supports. One thing that, before I go over supporting excellence or skip over too much, that I know a lot of teachers are very excited about, we have some videographers in the district now, and some of our highly effective teachers are being filmed so that our teaching and learning departments can then align certain clips of exemplary instructional strategies to the rubric. So if I'm a teacher and I'm struggling in Indicator 2.2, my administrator can direct me to a resource library, and I can just click and see an exemplar of what that should look like in action. So we will have that library available when teachers return in August, at least for the 9 indicators assessed during for the extended in domains 2 and 3, and we'll continue to build out that resource library in different grade level and content areas for the rest of the rubric. For rewarding excellence, there is a big push to start rewarding teachers based on their levels of effectiveness. We know that teachers don't go into education to get rich, but we do think that our most effective teachers should be rewarded accordingly through higher compensation. And so again, the 9 different levels of effectiveness are here, and there are compensation levels that correspond with each of these levels. Some of these were set after doing a market analysis and seeing, we want to be the most competitive district in North Dallas in terms of our compensation levels. And so these were adjusted in order to ensure that we remain competitive in the region. There are a few guiding parameters in order to ensure that it is sustainable. You can see those here. I'll just highlight a couple. In the first 2 years of implementation, a teacher can get up to $5,000 more each year, and then that salary cap will go away. And then a teacher's salary will never fall below their 2014-15 salary, their current salary, in order to ensure that, that they don't have that uncertainty. Proficient 2 and above requires going through DTR to be exemplary 2. They must have at least 1 year as an exemplary 1 teacher, and then master teacher requires at least 2 consecutive years as exemplary 2 and 4 years as a distinguished teacher in a tier 1 school. I heard this being discussed a little earlier about effectiveness levels not dropping under the ACE plan if a teacher, decides they want to move to an ACE campus and, having their effectiveness level protected. In essence, all teachers' effectiveness levels aren't going to drop unless they have 3 consecutive years of less than projected performance. But we've built in that rule to ensure that there is some financial security, that they aren't worrying from 1 year to the next that their salary is going to fluctuate. And so that's actually applicable to all teachers, regardless if they're moving to ACE, regardless if they teach on an IR campus. All teachers, they'll see their evaluation rating, which is a separate metric that will be reflected on their scorecard. They'll see that reflected.
Okay, so quick question. Why do you think that the teacher rating might be affected by being in an IR campus?
So some teachers, we have heard feedback that they're hesitant to move to an IR campus if they're worried it might impact their rating at all, based on maybe that they are high performing at a magnet school, but they're worried if they move to a different campus that maybe their rating could be affected.
Well, but why would it if you've got the they have CEI and
Yep,
student
because you can
groups
see
and
growth.
stuff.
So I'm certainly not saying that it would be, but we've built in that protection as a safety net to reassure teachers if they move that it's not going to be to their detriment. It's not going to impact them. And so, again, I absolutely see your point, and I'm not asserting that it would impact it, but we want to reassure teachers since we are trying to incentivize our most effective teachers to teach at campuses that are underperforming.
Can I ask something? Is attendance,
It's in
Applied
the
to
domain 4
Yeah.
at the
domain
TF.
four? It is?
Of the rubric, yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
what, is there a percentage or something like that?
It's so it was updated to align with the changes in DEC local this year. So it's done by number, but that's the number of days absent is just one sub-indicator under indicator 4.1 on the rubric.
The reason being because last year, we tried to address the fact that when teachers leave the district in good standing, and they can retire or just leave the district after so many years in good standing, that those unused sick days could be given to them as an incentive for monetary value. And I haven't seen whereas it has been, if there's an input in our bylaws of the policies, if
we
that
change
is
it.
actually, done, because many teachers, if they decide to retire, they don't come to school because they have days to use. So, and that could really impede our progress with our children, with our students. So what is it?
We monetized it. We did away, maybe Gilbert can have, but we now allow personnel to collect days instead of having to use days up within a certain period of time so they can continue to add. And then we incentivize that when people leave the district that they, and I don't remember off the top of my head exactly how much.
I'll research it. And I'll
Because I think the new
Yeah.
policy.
No, you had brought that issue up before.
Right.
In fact, we worked on it over the last 2 years, and so it was changed.
It's changing.
It is changing.
It is changed. So at the building level, have you received that information?
No, well, we've talked about it in
Because
our.
it's almost time, for
Yeah.
people to start.
Yeah, we
missing
talked about it in our
home
principals
every time.
meetings, and so we have heard this information. But I haven't seen it in writing or anything, but it's probably out there.
I will forward you the policy that addresses that.
The teachers don't know it, that's for sure. I can tell
Well,
you that.
and that's we should
Communications.
know it because,
We'll work
our
on it.
Well, but
students
she's
are
right
really
that-
suffering when.
And yeah,
when
that
they
comes back to the
retire.
integrity of the teacher and principals having that conversation with a teacher. If you know you're retiring, like you have the option to retire in December, so I can go ahead and hire another teacher in January or whatever. But for the most part, I've had some teachers to retire and they are still diligent about coming to work.
Well, I didn't have that same experience, and so I don't know.
Well,
if
just
the
from a
rest of you
teacher
have.
perspective, I mean, if you have 100 or 200 days, then
Why not
at
use?
some point in time, is there some sort of, I mean, yes, I want to be a good, but I was paid for that, and I would like some amount of compensation for that. Don't incentivize people to take 10 days every year,
Right,
Right.
because you're incentivized, if you're not paying, you are,
right.
I agree with you, I'm worried, I never like it when a teacher manages for 6 months something, but you are telling me, you're giving me a big signal from day one I walk in the door, take your 10 days every year. And
Right.
that doesn't seem to be something we should be doing.
And
No,
I'm
I'm
thinking
pretty
about
sure
the
we've changed
students.
it. We'll look
Oh,
at
no,
that.
totally.
Being
I'm
that
totally with
they
you.
have to have a substitute teacher, and it's not always quite the same.
I think what was it, $60 a day is what they get for each day not used?
I think that it's a lot more than that, because I know that I was
I don't
feeling
know
very
if they decided.
uncomfortable about the amount.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's a pretty high number.
Well, I know we looked at $100 for the sub, so we were trying to.
At least they get $90 per day, and you're gonna pay someone.
Yes.
You're gonna pay someone to be in that classroom. So why not give it to the teacher so the teacher can come on to work and forget about those days? Because I had 100 days when I retired, 100 and something days. I had 102. I could not have. But of course, but she was saying, I knew I should be there, okay? But you don't have all teachers thinking. I came to work.
I will give the
But I worry
information.
about the kids, I really do, because it's at the end, almost at the end of the year when you're taking your test and et cetera. And it can be a detrimental
So,
situation.
in terms of the connection to TEI, is there is a component that addresses the evaluation of attendance. So, but I will get to the policy and what we've done in that area.
I know the teachers would love to know.
They will love it, I know they
I think-
Well, just knowing the number would be really helpful.
I don't know if we actually published a exact dollar number, but I know we published the policy that I am aware of. But again, I will get you the details.
Sorry, that was off topic.
Well, I kind of want to.
Peter, I will try to make sure that you get a copy of
Thank you, Jim. So, I know we started about 10, 15 minutes late. I'm going to let Lindsay finish up her presentation, and then Jim wants to talk a little bit about the sustainability of it, and that's probably going to take, Jim, you have 5 minutes. So, to set the parameters, I don't want to stay here till late tonight, but anyways.
Okay, I'll be very quick. So we have, for stipends, some stipends are going to phase out because teachers will be receiving credit for doing some of these, resuming some of these leadership positions under the DTR process in TEI. And so there is a stipend task force that is being convened. It's met a couple times so that we can determine, and it's made up of representatives from across the district, which stipends should remain and which ones should ultimately be phased out. And then cost of living adjustments every few years. A group will be brought together to determine whether or not cost of living adjustments should be made under TEI. So I believe I've spoken to most of this. Yes, sir.
Last meeting, Superintendent Miles said that he wanted to increase stipends. Gilbert or Jim, do we know what he's aiming for in that? Is there a number he has in mind?
Well, you're probably referring to the movement to incentivize the teachers down to
the IR schools?
Yeah, the IR schools.
But he was talking about broadly, I thought, expanding
we put in the
stipends.
budget right now for a tentative working number, $3 million.
Perfect, thank you.
2.5.
Perfect.
And it will be, when you look at the district action plan that I shared with you, by the way, I will send you a revised copy. It was revised on the 17th. It will show that amount.
We carved a lot of stipends away 3 or 4 years ago.
So
we need to bring it back.
there will be another item that I will bring to the committee once the task force of the stipend committee task force has determined what to move forward with. That will be another presentation to this group. Kind of bring it all together.
And then lastly, these tables just show a side-by-side comparison of the current salary schedule for someone with either a bachelor's or master's. And then the table on the right shows the average progression, what we anticipate might be an average teacher's progression under TEI. So we don't want to mislead anyone and say every teacher is going to advance up 1 effectiveness level per year, which is feasible for teachers to advance 1 per year. But we certainly want to manage expectations. But even with this average progression example, you can see that over the course of 15 years under TEI, this teacher has an earning potential of over $100,000 more than a teacher who starts with us today with a bachelor's degree. So on that note, I will turn it over to Dr. Terry.
Dr. Terry, because I want to ask, give some information to the schools that the Dallas Public Library has a website, database for homework, hotline, and test preparation. It's excellent. So all you need to have is a library card, the Dallas County library card, to go on. And I would advise that you take a look at it because it's really quite personalized. They have, you can send, students can send in writing samples, and there are students at the universities who actually volunteer to read those writing samples. And I think you would really appreciate the information that your students and parents could have, because parents would need, some help in helping students with their homework if they possibly can. Of course, you have to have a computer, but all of the libraries have computers, but most of your kids will, have computers or a phone or something to get online. Okay?
So I have a brief question. Lindsay, in your final comparison of salaries, there's a note, no cost of living adjustments are estimated for simplicity. Are those adjustments is that talking about the average 3% that eats into people's salaries, or those adjustments that the board may make occasionally, or?
Correct, both. And
Both.
so both the 14-15 schedules that are listed here, presumably over the course of 15 years, there would be COLAs added over the course of 15 years, but the same for the TEI compensation level. So just in order to, since we don't know what inflation will look like, we just held it constant for all of them.
But you're anticipating keeping up with cost of living then?
Yes, in the new TEI model, the salary range, meaning novice to masters, is to be looked at every 3 years for an adjustment.
Cool.
Adjustment.
Teachers like that?
As a matter of fact, if you look at your screen, what you have is essentially the salary range presently. Now, you'll notice in Lindsay's presentation, she had exemplary 2 and masters. Exemplary 2 is at 82,000, masters at 90K. Next year, no one will be able to, under the rules, to get to that level. And so the way that we can control the amount of total dollars is by the salary range, 47 to 74 or 90K. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means that, when times are good, we can, adjust the scale every 3 years. If they're really, really good, we might look sooner. If times become bad, such as what happened in 10 and 11, when this district lost $100 million, we could in fact adjust the salary range down. So that's one way we will control, the total dollars out. The second way is this right here is the distribution. Now, if you think of this as a normal distribution, it's the distribution that, in fact, will, under a normal distribution, we can keep within a range of the total dollar amounts that we spend. What you have here is our projected salary based on the current TEI model and what our prediction is. And you should have a spreadsheet that looks like this. And it's very detailed. I'm not putting it up on the scale because you won't be able to read it anyway. I think there's, and if you notice going through the top is you have the novice all the way to the exemplary 1. And the blue, the pink represents the floor, okay? And the blue represents the cap. And what we have done is we have made a projection at the number of teachers that would be at every one of these levels. And then also we've got in there showing what we are on the longevity pay scale. So if you look at this projection right here, is that currently we think that all teachers on average, and that means that some teachers will probably get no raise and some teachers will reach the maximum of $5,000 with 1 year. On average, the number of teachers would be $2,300 increase. The average pay right now is 53, and will go up to 55.3, I believe. And so that means that salary increase would be about $23 million overall to the district. If we were to give a 3% raise, which will probably be the recommendations for others, the non-teachers, that would be approximately a 15%, $1,500 raise for all teachers on average, which would be $15 million. We have about 10,000 teachers. So that difference between 23 and 15 million is 8 million. So essentially TEI is costing us about 8 million over what we would consider an increase, normal increase. Last year we gave all teachers 3%. We gave everybody 3% last year. And the year before that was 2%. And right now we're in financial good shape. And if you look at this curve, this is not a normal distribution. This curve is skewed to the left. And that means that in fact we will probably save more money than if it was a normal distribution. And so the total cost will probably be something less than $8 million if we compared that to a 3% raise to all teachers.
So just so if I understand, so the red line is the distribution today.
We're forecasting. Well, we're forecasting for next year.
For next year.
Right.
Can you remind me where you expect it to be in 5 years?
Well, we did not forecast out that, but we expected, to move to the right towards a normal distribution.
Okay.
So
Have you set up an appeals process?
yes,
And which department is handling that?
it'll be human capital management.
Human capital, okay.
So Jim, what you're saying, and please correct me if I'm wrong,
Sure.
that this is merit pay restricted by distribution.
Not merit pay.
So-
This is not merit pay. This is the distribution of the TEI.
So you're restricting the distribution of the pay,
In those categories.
correct?
Right now, the way that the distribution, we have a normal distribution. If you look at this chart right here, you look at the top left.
Right.
It's got a little thing that says performance distribution limitations. So that I do believe, though it's less than 0, we probably should have gotten the percentages, but there is a normal distribution. And that's the other way that we control the total amount of the salaries is by the distribution.
Okay, so clarify this for me, because we had this conversation before the meeting started, and it was abrupt because I really don't understand. I talked to some attorneys this morning that said, because I knew this was coming, and what they're telling me is that there's legally 2 forms of pay schedule recognized by the courts right now, and that is basically pay by seniority in education, which we're not doing, and pay by merit or performance, which is what this TEI is supposed to do. But restricting this pay by distribution, I was told, is simply not legal. Is that?
We're certainly prepared for that challenge.
But you believe it will be challenged? Because I do, and only because this isn't kosher. in the state of Texas right now, this wouldn't be an accepted.
No, I'm not a lawyer, but I do believe that the new TEI pay system is based on performance, and that's
even though it's restricted based on distribution, though.
It's going to be based on the number of points, efficiencies, effectiveness levels. So it's effectiveness levels that are going to determine, where in the distribution. But we do control the distribution.
But since you control the distribution, you got this next chart that you're predicting somebody's salary is going to go up some scale. Why would it do that if the distribution's already set? Wouldn't it be generally the case, well, if I'm here, I would expect that in my competition with all my other teachers, we all improve along the way. And I'm not saying let's set that aside, that's a good goal, but why would I think any teacher is going to actually improve because the distribution's already been set? We all have to fit in this spot.
Yeah. And clearly, this is how you control cost. I'm with you on control of cost, 100%, right? So don't misunderstand. Right. I agree.
I understand what you're saying in a certain sense that if this looked like a normal distribution, and it probably never look exactly like a normal distribution, but let's take this distribution right now. This distribution is based on the effective score for, in this case, we've got, I believe, 8 here. for, we've got 8, 8 distributions, so to speak. So what we think will happen is that, as the teachers become more and more effective, their effectiveness scores should rise. But over time, okay, we will expect that all of the teachers' effectiveness will increase, as Peter has pointed out. And what that does is that the effectiveness, if you were to put it on the Y scale, is right now it's at say 1,200. Well, the effectiveness will then rise like this. So all of the teachers' effectiveness rises with the distribution, but the distribution, once it gets to a normal distribution, doesn't shift way far to the right, or we control how far to the right that it will shift.
Right, so when I'm a teacher though, and I don't feel I'm gonna get a raise, it's time to go find a job at a different district at some point in time.
You're exactly right. If, in fact, you're not an effective teacher, right?
But what if I am an effective teacher,
Well,
but
if
I
you're-
know my salary isn't going to increase?
Hey, if you're an effective teacher in the north and you move to the south, you get protected because you might not be in the south.
I'm sorry,
the whole thing's
I was
bogus.
off track, Jim.
Well, if in fact you're an effective teacher and you stay at a certain level, right? There's 2 things that you can do. So that once every 3 years, there would probably be, if the money is there, there'll be an increase in the base, the base range. The other thing is that if you're, not an effective teacher, right, and you got 11 years, and you look over to Garland and you say, wow, if I go over there, I've got 11 years and I get hired over there, I'm going to make more money, and so they move to Garland. So I can see that can happen. And the system, and certainly correct me if I'm wrong, I mean the system is trying to improve the effectiveness level of teachers that we put before.
I have a question. So with this projection, is it insinuating that we already have teachers pegged to fall in these categories? Is
No.
Because
This
do
is
you
our
know how many
projections.
proficient teachers I have on my campus? Do you know how many unsat teachers I have on my campus?
We do not know the effectiveness scores. That's still to be done. So this is in fact the bean counters trying to determine where the butterflies are going to land on the distribution. Now, we might be wrong, but I will certainly have Mr. Prado in my office if he misses this by too much.
And I'm always very conservative.
Yeah. Can I also point out that a couple of the rules, because we have such an inexperienced teaching force, the rules have it built in that if they don't have at least 3 years of experience, they won't be a proficient one. And that also explains why you see it skewed to the left, because around 3,000 or so of our teachers, I believe, are in their first or second year.
That's correct.
Correct.
So Jim, on your chart in the back, just real quickly, the number of teachers, 10,556. Does that include the permanent subs as the teacher category?
No.
How many permanent subs do we have?
250.
That's it?
Yes.
Cool.
I would love to continue the discussion, but if there's further questions that we need to address, certainly email me and I can get Lindsay, Jim, myself, respond to some of those questions. Getting a little long, and it's actually right on time since we started about 15 minutes late. Are there any last burning
I
questions?
just want to give them the website, Dallas. It's DallasLibrary2.org. Social studies and all courses are on there.
And again, Josh apologized for not making it. He had some family issues that could not be addressed, so apologize for that.
What's on the agenda for next?
So I am looking at the agenda for next, I have to discuss the agenda with Josh, and we are looking at ERG data coming up on April 13th. if the task force has come up with some solutions or recommendations for the stipend, I hope to present that to you guys as well. And then I definitely want to, in April, give you a status of where we're at in the budget. I know you had a couple of questions, Mike, and obviously we don't have time to address them right now, but I really want to give you a status of where we're at. Definitely by May, you definitely want to know how these dollars are being tied to what our charge is, and that is the district action plan. So that's kind of what the progression is. So hopefully, the reason I have ERG on the next agenda is to kind of give you a perspective of comparability with other districts in terms of where we stand.
Do we have to make recommendations this year as we did before?
So that's a fair question. So it is a, remember the two points of the committee, the charges. One is, are we putting the dollars where we're saying we're putting dollars?
Okay, so it's different.
So it is different, and again, that's one of the, and if we're not, then your recommendations to do so. I mean, that was very clear by the superintendent.
What would those recommendations be due if we were to do that?
So that is certainly something that we'll discuss, or that you need to discuss with Josh. We've had that conversation as well. And so we'll definitely discuss that in the next meeting, hopefully.
This is March.
That's correct.
Budget.
Yes.
Actually, if we could see sort of a calendar of how you see it unfolding.
Absolutely.
Right? When you're going to take the budget to the trustees,
Oh, absolutely.
if we're going to make a recommendation, when they would have to be in, so we can see how it comes together.
I certainly will. Now, I did possibly send the timeline, but I haven't
Yeah,
more
I
concrete.
think that, you sent a timeline.
I did, but I'll send you a slimmer version of that to kind of pinpoint the key processes that we're working on.
Yeah, I guess our chairman will let us know.
Do y'all get any updates? I'm pretty sure y'all do from various sources on legislative updates regarding finance that y'all could share with us. Just through an email.
I think there was something like 2,000 or 3,000 bills that were filed on the last day, Friday the 13th. And I talked a little bit about the House Bill 1 and Senate Bill 2, if I have those right. And there also talked about, and I don't remember all of the numbers on it, but the answer is yes. We look at all of the financial ones, and we have a representative down at the legislature that supports those bills, or talks to our legislative team and other legislatures about those bills that we feel will be detrimental to us and will be positive to us, and we certainly let those legislators know, and we are following it. We meet weekly on legislative issues.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm asking if y'all were. I'm just saying if you could share some of that with us, as far as just an update of.
We can send you all 3,000.
No.
We'll send you the links.
So the principals will know
Let's send
what
them
to
the
tell
links.